Chapter 7, Ancillary Reference Materials, Lectures and Information. An essay on the concept of leadership. Dictated by Marani to Alex Collier. What is important this present time in your world is to know the pioneer leaders of your past who greatly influenced your world today are removed from the hearts of the people today. The leaders of today, this present moment, should share and embrace the same faith, philosophy and objective as the people. They, the leaders, should thereby raise each of the governed to his or her own level, according to the principles of consistency from beginning to end. This mistakes, as we have studied and observed, are that throughout your history, hero worship and fame-seeking has risen to the point of the idea your leaders are great and the general populace is ignorant and powerless. This concept in your country contradicts a true democracy and is wrong. So it shall be that individuals must and will awaken and united voluntarily. Some will be artists, scientists, and others from all walks of life. They will become teaching leaders of the people with whom they are working directly and will teach all men and women to be leaders. At the same time, it is also important that those who support them must become leaders also. To be a leader in your world, we would only suggest that only the requirements be simple and evolve from the real essence of mankind. Leaders should be in absolute faith of their humanhood, declaring always the greatness of God and self-responsibility. They should also have a strong sense of responsibility for themselves and those that they teach. A leader should always love his people, protect them, and encourage them warmly into their own power and humanhood. The leader's sense of responsibility will deepen by his affection of his role as teacher and father or mother. When a leader lacks mercy or compassion, they will be self-serving and irresponsible. And a leader/teacher should always strive and be broad-minded. He should always try to be capable of understanding his members' needs and individual situations, and putting himself in their place. A leader should practice gentleness and forbearance, and be determined to hear the problems and teach guidance and self-determination to any person to establish self-faith and happiness. A leader also needs to be impartial. He must not be swayed by his own feelings or self-serving considerations. Always eager to give a fair hearing to reasonable suggestions, but firm in protesting self-serving goals or mistaken views, even to his seniors. Leaders should be careful of those that flatter them, as not to cater to their personal agendas. Leaders should cultivate the sense to spot cheap tricks, lies and sneakiness. He must also put the right person in the right place and be courageous about it. The idea is to build long-term integrity in all aspects of life and leadership. Always acknowledge the inconspicuous efforts of others, as all souls are part and contribute to the whole. Your leaders should also have self-confidence, courage and decisiveness. Leaders must believe in their ability to protect his members and help them advance to self-responsibility so all may become determined. Those persons who have done the inner work on the path of being a true human being, acquire wisdom and are true leaders. They always have faith in themselves. Those who walk the path of heart will discover that through faith emerges wisdom. And this same faith enables the leader to employ his wisdom effectively in all situations. Courage is indispensable to the leader. Leadership is no place for cowardice. Always strive to advance wisdom and courage. Building an honest and healthy race of human beings means producing a world of leaders of the true law of oneness. Development of faith, integrity and character is both the starting point and the end result. This will make all people capable human beings. Every child born in your world is a new opportunity to build an honest and real world. Leaders need not criticize each error on the part of their members or staff. A leader should praise them for what they have done well and capably. There will be other people who will criticize. Being a leader or becoming a leader does not mean you have perfect faith or wisdom. These are lifelong pursuits. Being a leader is to develop people, and to help people into self-responsibility, spiritual maturity and the freedom to cultivate voluntary introspection. Mankind can develop remarkably, even under adverse circumstances. When Earth awakens to her mission and towards her great objective, we will have full faith that you all will be successful, and a source of great pride to all of us. On the relationship with the ISNES. Morani to Alex Collier, February 24, 1995, California. The worship of the ISNES God concept is silent and solitary, free from all self-seeking. The silence is a necessity, as all speech is feeble and imperfect. Therefore, as, with your ancestors and ours, their spirits and consciousness would ascend out of time and space to the ISNES in wordless adoration, feeling. There are no priests or saviors authorized to come between a man, soul, and our Maker. Each experience is personal, and different than another, and should not in any way be meddled with or judged. Each soul should become conscious of the divinity that is in itself. There should be no shrines, no temples among you. Accept nature and the caretaking of nature by mankind. Be a real, natural human being. Your real faith may not be formulated in creeds, as you have been taught, but from a deeper portion of yourself that you have forgotten, or ignore. Temples were built on your planet to honor and worship the extraterrestrial beings believed to be gods. The isness can be worshipped by honoring yourself and that which is given you. By honoring yourself you honor the isness, because you are truly one and the same. Look at your earth, your ocean, your night sky and the galaxy. This is your church, and you are the altar in that church. So, release yourself from your past limited thinking. It takes only a decision. What anyone else thinks does not matter. It is important to remember that the isness does not place value upon the material fabric of time. This has only been created so that we as souls could learn more about ourselves and return with our experiences to contribute to the creation of ourselves. The rituals of offerings, sacrifice, and other symbolic objects only mean something to you alone. The isness is only interested in your intent, the path of your heart. Look to find your highest happiness and the motive for power in your existence. Do not look with ill upon those of simplicity or poverty. The goal of one's path, regardless of lifetimes or life forms, is not the accumulation of wealth and the enjoyment of material luxury. It is to discover your true self, that which is apart from the isness. It is that part of you which chooses to leave the comfort and safety of all eternity, to fall into the concept of time. To become a true human being is the practice and constant embracing of your essential self. And, from that place of eternity, your thoughts, actions and emotions should emanate into the world. Human beings should be vulnerable, open, focused, strong and flexible. In your world, the three concerns all of you must address personally are self-worth, trust and expectation. Your earth not only needs healing, she also needs a responsible and worthy companion. That companion is the masculine. There is a great need for the men of your world to become intuitive and focused on the development of the soul. Men must cultivate unconditional love on all levels. The men of your world are too aggressive and full of self-imposed loneliness. Please remember that all energy moves in a circle, so everything returns, the love, anger and despair. Please, we ask you to also acknowledge the fact that the love you withhold is the pain you carry. So, let love warm your voice. Let love be the wonder to children's ears. Let imagination create a world of unconditional responsibility. It will also change the order of the old world. Let your emotions give motion to the hero that struggles within all of you for the freedom to act, to be, to witness and to apologize. The responsibility of becoming a human being is great, but it also natural. It is prayer in motion. It is your evolution and free will in action. It is the flow of life in all things. So, love the earth and make new life, for children are always a new beginning. Most of you have yet to rediscover a world you've already discovered. More on the new density characteristics. Moreni to Alex Collier. Released January 9, 1997, is the start of one nest that we would like to talk to you about and share with you. The vibratory rate of the universe is changing very fast, as compared to the rate of compulsory evolution. In your world, the rate of this vibratory rate will be measured by the frequency of the Earth. The effects of the new dimension were introduced in your year 1994, and it is affecting all physical material worlds regardless of their state or dimension. The effects are changing all physical matter, including atoms, photons, hydrogen molecules and all matter in the 11 creational densities. It is important that this be explained or stated for those that will listen, for it will prove to be verified for those who waver in doubt. All physical matter is going to change because all thought is changing. It is starting in all of us at a higher level in spiritual form, or what we would coin for your discernment, the one mind. As we told or spoke to you earlier, when we first recorded this new dimension, we explained to you that we were told of it by the Pater, a race consisting of a single group consciousness in what you could observe as the 9th density, that the frequency being emitted from the black holes is of one polarity. We now have more data that we can share and explain about its profound effects on all of us who are physical. We know not why this is happening, but only that it will change much of all of our lives and conscious experience in a short time. We, in Andromeda, are preparing ourselves and our young, as well as trying to express as best as we can to other races what we have learned, so that others may choose to act or not to act in whatever way each acknowledges to do so. The most immediate changes is in the 11th density, as we are told. To describe it to you in your limited language is nearly impossible, as one cannot express or explain infinity to a first grader or a 5-year-old in your world. We do not mean to imply that you are not capable of understanding, but we are at a loss to explain precisely to you when, because your language is so short of true expression of the soul. But we will try by saying that a dimension containing white light contains 72 more frequencies of light and consciousness, and that the levels of consciousness contained within a holographic dimensional picture of the same 72 frequencies, contained in one dimension, has tripled itself in an instant. The 11th density is now beyond description to those who were in 11th density, and their mode and quality of descriptive language and thought is now inadequate to explain the change. Those consciousness aspects that exist to evolve are having to create whole new realities of communication. An example of what we are trying to express to you is that, if 1 million people could not express or explain what had happened to them as a whole or as individuals, this would be very profound to the remainder. That is what happened. The changes and leaps of consciousness are so profound on the 11th density, those beings cannot relate to it in their present wisdom. They cannot explain what it is or why it is, because their past ability to be at one with their own existence has not prepared them for what has occurred. Their new reality is beyond all experience or expression. The effects are now beginning to be seen and felt on the 9th and 10th densities, and we as a race are starting to try to be at one with the vibration, so that there will be no interruption in our cooperation and vigilance with your present 3rd density and 4th density realities. Be it known to you that we cannot express to you what changes you will experience, until we have experienced them. But, based on the past and future experiences of 9th, 10th and 11th density beings, we already conclude that we may not be prepared to express it. The beings of the 11th density are having difficulty expressing it themselves, and expressing their experiences to each other of the oneness of their new consciousness. In other words, it is like a child who has thoughts but does not know how to speak, and struggles to say the first words, and isn't sure what was said or why. It's first grade on the highest level of consciousness in our universe. We love and share with you. Lose not your faith. Be at one always. Your brother, Moreni. Dealing with current social crisis. The most necessary action now, for all of you who are aware, is to do what you are capable of doing to illuminate your degenerated societies. Consciousness is your scale. It always provides balance, which does not fail. It speaks to those who listen to it and tells them what to do, and what not to do, to one or all beings who chose to be involved. The key to your happiness is in the hands of your consciousness. We have perceived that you have arranged your lives not according to yourselves, but according to others. Your disappointments are due to this fact. This kind of conduct of yours is what is limiting your race. Each one of you is a free soul, a free consciousness. No one is the servant or a slave of anyone else, though the hidden ones would trick you to believe otherwise. Mutual respect is imperative for the healed planetary race. Help is being extended to you if you want it. Because of our genetic lineage to your race, we would like to be with you during your difficult times. Today, you are a planet and a race that destroys itself in ignorance. Your goal is to uncover the genuine human beings lost deep within yourselves. Always be at one with yourself. We have been in communication with many races in discussions regarding militant decision-making. We all agree that conflict in the end serves one purpose, to create fear. And, this we know removes the original intent from creation. We are hopeful that sincerity will gain momentum. Some historical aspects of human physiology and genetics. Material in brackets has been added for linguistic clarification in your linear time of 3rd density measurement of 439,231 rotations ago. Years, war on a grave scale occurred in your solar system. This aggression occurred against those on your worlds that included not only Uterans, but also those called Nibiru. This invasion of your systems by Orion was led by a queen named Suri. This war was destructive on many levels, frequencies of physicality. We will focus tonight on your Terran physical form. It matters little of those who hear you, Alex, who do not listen. Please share this, regardless of any emotion returned to you and challenge. When your science truly removes their bigotry, they will discover of the wisdom of it. What is said here? The last grave conflict was very harmful to your physical form. Many weapons of destruction, many of atom-splitting nuclear weapons have been used. This is the reason for most of your Terran skin tones. We shall explain. Orion was and is most interested in the females of your race. Because of the procreation, reproductive, and genetic strengths. We want to share the fact that much of your Terran history has been misleading in its truth by those who eventually conquered in control of your solar system. Those in control rewrote history to hide the truth. Nibiru won, but only a short battle, before they and other outposts were forced to leave the solar system because of genetic damage. Your original races were green-skinned. This we know, because of large copper traces in your Terran 22 blood type refers to the composite of human genetics, which comprise genetic codes from 22 humanoid species. Also, the pituitary and thyroid glands were fully functional at that time. The genetic damage to these organs was caused by the radioactivity in the air and all things of contact on all things in the environment. The air was like this for a long time. The radioactivity in the environment caused the genetic memory of these organs, genetic memory of full use capacity, being closed and almost atrophied, caused the function of the organs to shut down and the organs to atrophy. Your world experienced drastic changes in climate and massive magnetic fluctuations. Your different skin tone races are a result of an edema damage to your blood, changes in blood chemistry. It was, then, necessary for survival to create self-sufficient and contained environmental habitats, both above and below the surface. Much of the fossilization of your Terran remnants is caused by this radiation of your planet. Here they imply that ambient radiation plays a part in fossilization processes. Your system contained 3 suns at that time. Only 2 remain. One is on the opposite side of the visible sun, and rotates in such a way that it is hidden from view from the perspective of the Earth. Your physicality body in its original form contained a great balance of zinc, copper, magnesium and iron. Your true, original blood color was green, like your chlorophyll. Some, we have discovered, even had blood of a gold tint. As such, at that time, your physicality body could survive in a high carbon dioxide content atmosphere. Because of this skin color green, the only stars in your system that affected your physical form were in the color spectrum of orange, red, blue and green. Many of your Terran races were stranded on the surface. The genetic changes were the result of radiation damage. Your race, skin color, went from green, to red, to yellow, to black, and then to white. Your white races were then considered then to be genetically weakest. Note, that should stem some people. As such, the survivors and descendants of the war were genetically altered and became white through edema. He means anemia. And they were persecuted and were forced to live underground, only to surface 5,508 rotations years ago to the surface of your world. The copper bloodline is now a small race on your world. Note, he has to be referring to the blue blood self-declared nobility, but it is the strongest genetically. Your native red nation race is very strong and easiest to discover and understand. Note, this might explain the penchant for abduction of those with red genetic bloodlines, and also the relative genocidal murder of the red races by the white. The red is the closest to the original form among you. Your physicality had a natural defense to positive and negative frequencies due to the copper mineral in your blood, resistance to electromagnetic variation. This lack now of copper in your blood has caused a partial loss of brain capacity and nervous system capacity. Remember that your DNA contains cellular memory. It is possible to unlock this memory with the use of minerals such as copper. Your blood systems are adapted now to iron because of copper depletion due to ambient radiation. We will share more, but we must return now. Beat 1, Alex. Telepathic statement from Moreni, November 3, 1996, release November 5, 1996, National Election Day. Alex, we have already spoken with you in detail of your race's genetic transfers and reincarnation before. I will mention them again when necessary because your path and happiness depend on being able to attain the truth. Yes, we are aware the situation of your planet shows great deviation of the right path in the sincerity period. But, please, if you would try to share this moment in your planet's evolution as a preparation for the investments, which will be made in the very near future for your races. Since the removal of conditions by density technology, your evolution is going to a faster pace, I think you say, than before. Note, here Moreni paused in the middle of the talk to listen to information regarding movement of craft around Uranus. He smiled and then resumed, we have had to raise the frequency of your planet to move change and enlightenment along. Such a broad word you use, this word, enlightenment. It was necessary. This also means great tests of tolerance and situations will be needed by your races. The most important of these tolerances will be caused by delusionary discriminations between your peoples. At the present moment your races are carrying in your DNA genetics the influences of 1,000 centuries, as you count rotations, both the positive and negative aspects. Please understand we are trying to prepare your races for advanced maturity. At present moment, many transfers occur in your planet from many different cultures and planes. Each member of the races on and in your planet will naturally exhibit their own mentality. They do and will contradict your habitual cultures. But, please do not forget that we have told you about mental conflicts, that they cause each to go through tests of maturity. We determine your mentalities through the impulse signals we receive from your race's chain of thoughts. Now, the selection of men or women and the situations they transcend are much more difficult, because their preparation in terms of the future is in accordance with their level of consciousness. Alex, you cannot help all your races. Each member of your races will feel their essencing during the balancing of positive and negative as they have done, and it will be weighed in their own consciousness. Those who prepare and invest will be prepared for the evolution to another density. The countenance of your planet is changing very quickly. Please don't confuse our compassion for your races with a love for your planet. Please understand that they, two concepts, are separate with our race. We are neither pleased with your world's riches, nor dismayed by its poverty. We come here to assist in the period of sincerity. The clarifying of the original intent in all of us in this video holograph. Because of lineage to your races, we return to you. Your world is a place of veiled consciousness. In order to be embodies in physicalness, all frequencies should be assembled in a whole intent. The very distresses, the many anxieties, are the result of conflict with the limitless awareness in your races. This is the reason why your planet races cannot attain your own selves, and you desire to possess everything. The reflections of your evolutionary state of physicality causes your races not to live comfortably on your planet. Your present religions cause your races to unify the idea of your physical bodies with your abstract egos. You call this progress. We do not. Stop looking to your physicality to bring you enlightenment. Your bodies are the effect of the cause, which is intent, moved by emotion, which creates physicality. During previous past times in your third density, education of the soul took many incarnations of life and death of the physical body. Situations and reincarnations would reflect this system, it appears. All beings would transcend your physicalness in accordance with the degree of consciousness attained. Since it appears that your races, having no concept of the law of consistency, became very fragmented in extremes. Religions became divisions of beliefs, and conflicts among your races took place. The worship of belief systems and idolatry came into existence. Now, the technology of advanced races and higher densities have taken control of your evolutionary systems, and by means of this system's control, the evolution of certain dimensions. Reincarnations have become history, and by this means your races, Alex, and others' races than yours, have a probability of directly attaining your full senses. The reason for telling you this truth in all clarity is to free you of the conflicts and contradictions, so your races can attain the truth as soon as possible. So, don't ask us about yourself, ask about yourself to your own self. If your races cannot attain the truth and cannot be unified with your original intent, we will not be able to be in touch with your planet races. Since the ego consciousness in your races still goes on, and since you cannot break the denial of your inner self, your race becomes detrimental to the planet and to your planetary system. At this moment, there are many beings who cannot attain genuine respect for self and self-awareness in our galaxy. They, as well, are being kept under control. Their evolutions are being made in an indirect way. Your races have also been persecuted and manipulated by other galactic races from planetary systems negatively charged, other than your own. Since during your different past time periods they have tried to prove to your ancestors their own technical power, fear has been created in your races. We have returned, to convey the truth, to erase these fears. Since your planet is the site of both the most primitive and most high maturity, it is very full of contradictions. Your religions which helped many to evolve, have not been released. Your races have refused to let go of a system of beliefs that have not serviced your planet for the last 453 rotations of your star years. By freeing you of this, and with the use of common sense, we hope your races will attain your own selves, and become fully independent. Be at one. The Grays in the Earth Agenda. A 1995 Alex Collier lecture interaction between Gazette Group and Nazi Germany. The Greys made contact with a world governmental body for the first time in 1931. This was in Germany. The Greys were however turned away by the German government, because it had already committed itself to involvement with the Gazette intelligence. Now, I don't know if you know who Gazette intelligence is, but I will tell you that it is a renegade group of human extraterrestrials that were headquartered on the Gazette Plateau in Egypt. They were predominantly Pleiadians at the time. Ashtar was part of that group, Kamigal was part of that group. Even Jehovah was part of that group for some time. They did their own thing. They came down here and played God with us, and people worshipped them as gods because they had this technology. They abused their power. The Germans were, in the 1930s, building rockets and starting a space program because of their contacts with extraterrestrials, the Gazette intelligence. Technology was developed and used to create weapons, because the German governmental bodies involved were concerned that there was going to be an alien invasion. The Gazette intelligence told them that the Greys were here. However, there was not an actual invasion, per se, in progress. Weapons, such as sound devices, lasers, neutron bombs, particle beam weapons were created, although many of these were actualized later on in history. The Germans were given a lot of this technology by the Gazette intelligence. These technologies also included free energy devices and anti-gravity technology. Tripartite interaction, the United States, USSR and Britain. The United States was the first to open its doors to the alien race known as the Greys. I have been told of a contact in 1934, wherein the Greys made their presence known to the United States government in Washington state. It wasn't until 1947 that actual contact occurred with the aliens and United States officials, due to the shooting down of an alien craft in Roswell, New Mexico. This pressed the Greys into contact earlier than they had anticipated. After this crash at Roswell in 1947, the United States, the Soviet Union and the British, at the very highest levels of government, became blood brothers. Now, these governments did not know what Germany was really up to at that time in history. The Germans were very secretive about their contact with Gazette intelligences. What was going on in Germany and what was going on between these other countries were two separate issues. The Roswell incident created more of an urgency to develop a true space program in order to defend the Earth. Again, the United States government and the Soviets thought that there was a threat due to the technologically advanced state of the aliens they had encountered. The true space program was an underground development that we are just now beginning to hear about. It was originally financed by members of the Club of Rome. Now, you will need to do some homework to find out who those members are, and don't be surprised at who you see. We'll talk more about that when we discuss the moon. The Greys assisted the Black government with the building of some of the first facilities on the moon and Mars. Prior to all of this, between 1850 and 1950, there were instances of the mutilation of both cattle and humans. The NSA, which was created in the 1950s, knew that aliens were responsible. How they knew this, though, I have not been told. I will try and get more clarification on that. In 1952, the government prepared itself for the realization of ongoing alien contact. When our military radar systems started to bring down craft, the Greys realized that in order to perform their genetic experiments on such a large scale, in an attempt to genetically save their race, they would need the cooperation of a political body of a high caliber. In other words, they had to come to terms. A select body in the United States was designed to be the liaison between the Greys and Earth humans. The military was very enthusiastic, in the hope of exchanging raw materials for alien technology. This liaison group, the political structure, was the National Security Agency. This is what its original purpose was. The agreement and contract in May of 1954, the United States government made the agreement with an alien race. Some of the terms of this agreement featured the exchange of technology of anti-gravity, metals and alloys, environmental-type technologies, free energy and medical technologies geared toward dealing with the human body. All the Greys asked for in return, they said, was to be allowed to study human development in terms of consciousness and emotional makeup, and to be allowed to stay here on Earth. The agreement took place at Holloman Air Force Base. This single act involving the signing of a contract with an extraterrestrial race was the most significant event in human history, because it launched mankind in a direction we were never intended to go in the first place. It also thrust us into a role that we were not prepared for, either, of being host to an alien race. This also essentially handcuffed the Andromedan Council, and those benevolent extraterrestrial races from being able to take a more active role in our evolution. In effect, it has placed the burden squarely on the shoulders of humanity, to enlighten itself relative to the facts, and to consciously create ascension on an individual basis, because outside help was now unavailable. The particular treaty was agreed upon between these aliens and the Ultra unit in the NSA, which is in actuality a government unto itself. Now, pay close attention, because this is the first time I have ever mentioned this. The particular document and originally exchanged materials may be found today in the NSA facility called Blue Moon, underneath Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. The entrance to this base is in the Manzano Mountains. Also, at this location is the private Department of Energy (DOE) technological base. Currently, the building of free energy devices for use in space is ongoing in this particular facility. Much of the alien technology has been reconstructed and sent, via a connecting tunnel, to Los Alamos in an area located underneath the cliffsides of Los Alamos Canyon, where huge vaults are built into the earth. This facility is 29,000 square feet, and contains laboratories equipped to study light, thought, and pure energy. This facility is also used as a jail for aliens captured by black government factions. Now, the NSA is exempt from all laws in the United States, unless it is itself mentioned in any creation of law. This is because of its interaction with alien species and what it sees as necessary intervention into the civil and constitutional rights of the American people. The underground network and its management corporations that are currently assisting the various alien groups and the black government are O Standard Oil, O Lockheed, O Northrop, O McDonnell Douglas, O AT&T, O IT&T, O the Matthews Construction Company, O the Robbins Company, O the Utah Mining Company, O and a host of others. There was a great deal of private money used by the NSA to build alien technology, and to keep humanity under control, and the status quo secure. Even the CIA doesn't know a lot about the Ultra Unit or the Blue Moon Unit in the NSA, which deal with alien technology and information. Now, Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 under Blue Moon control compartmentalization, building and applications of alien technology. According to the Andromedans, Alpha 2 is MJ-12, and MJ-12 is at the bottom of the hierarchy, even though we are led to believe that it is at the top. Alpha 2 also controls the release of information and the security of that information. MJ-12 meets in a facility called the Country Club in the mountains of Virginia. The Country Club is owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. The vital meetings are held underground, and the members of MJ-12 are taken via a small subway to the town of Warrenton, Virginia. From there, they are taken to an underground city called Ravensbrück, which is located just south of the Blue Ridge Summit in Pennsylvania. The effort and energy they put into keeping all of this secret is incredible. It's nice to know that a race 2.2 million light-years away knows what is going on here. Most of the underground tunnel system across the United States is between 2,500 and 3,500 feet underground. The Boeing Aerospace Company built and created fuel batteries and power generators to operate this subterranean highway system that is apparently all across the United States. Apparently, in these fuel cells, they mix chlorine and hydrogen and electricity is created, as well as hydrogen chloride, which is then re-separated again into hydrogen and chlorine. The process continues forever, creating electricity forever. It never wears out, apparently. The planning and implementation for blueprints and design for the tunnel connections underground was handled by the Navy. The National Research Council was responsible for the underground tunneling systems across the United States. The management of all these facilities is handled by the Department of Energy. Now, the machines that were built to create this underground tunnel system and the underground facilities were built by the Jarva Corporation of Ohio, the Morrison-Knudsen Company out of Boise, Idaho, and the Robbins Company in Washington State. Most of the financing for this program, and all of these facilities, has been done through the NSA. Black Project financed through drug trafficking. Okay, the New World Order and the black government financed the building the alien bases and underground facilities. How is it that the NSA signed a treaty without going through Congress and did this without anybody knowing about it? The majority of the financing was the result of the CIA creating solutions to impossible situations. Proceeds from the sale of narcotics to the American people have been used to finance these black projects. The one example that I will give you, that apparently is just now coming to the surface, is a book called Compromise. It talks about Bill Clinton's involvement with the CIA, and the import of over $100 million worth of cocaine, each month for a period of years, into Mena Airport in Arkansas, from where it was distributed throughout the United States. Secret bases and tunnels. There are also underground bases around in tunnel systems that penetrate all throughout the Earth. Some of these are millions and millions of years old, built by advanced alien beings who were here in the past, mining our planet for minerals and precious metals. Some of these underground ancient facilities are protected by current Earth governments. As you will notice, the bulk of the underground installations are in the United States, and we are going to talk about where those bases are, and about what information I have been given about them. In Australia, there's Pine Gap, located in the center of the continent. Pine Gap is an extremely dangerous place. Many of the things that are being taken from the Earth to the Moon are leaving from Pine Gap. Also, in the snowy mountains in Australia there is another base. In China, there's an underground base that is US alien Soviet controlled located in Mongolia, in Xining. There is also a benevolent alien base under Tibet. The Soviet Union. Now, much of the underground hidden space program which developed the lunar bases has been a covert US-British-Soviet operation since 1958. Most of it has been launched from the Soviet Union, because of its vast expanse, and no one, anywhere, can see what is coming and going. They did not use the technology that we were used to seeing, these large rockets, to get that stuff up there. The Greys provided anti-gravity technology which allowed them to do this very easily. There is a base at Sarov that is a joint US-Soviet alien base. The Andromedans say that this base is very large and very dangerous. There is a base at Karagay and Sakhalin. There is an ultra-secret level base in the Ural Mountains, north of Sarov. There are bases in Iran. There is one right smack in the middle of the country, in the desert. It's very large, and apparently there are tunnel systems that run to the Red Sea and to the Indian Ocean. The Massarin Islands, underwater, there's a very large trench where there is also a base. In Africa, in Algeria, there's base in the Tahat Mountains. In the Sudan, there's an alien base in the Nyala Range. In Zaire, there's an alien base west of Kindu. In Botswana, there's a base at Kaimahaki. There is a base at the South Sandwich Islands. In Egypt, there is a base close to the Libyan border, and I understand that the base is as big as the state of Maryland. There is also one west of Cairo, underneath the Giza Plateau. There are no aliens there at all right now, I am told, but there are United States NSA personnel in it. In Europe, in Switzerland, there's a base under Mount Blanc shared by 7 races considered to be benevolent. In Scandinavia, east of Narvik there is a base. In Sweden, there's a base under Gotland Island, a private island. How many of you have seen the story of Hangar 18? According to the Andromedans, that particular craft was given to our government by the Andromedans themselves as a goodwill gesture to open up dialogue and communications. Apparently, they still have not been able to get inside the craft because they still haven't figured how to open it, but what they did was move it to Gotland Island off the coast of Sweden. That's where it is now. There have been many attempts by the Andromedans to open up a dialogue with the government. The benevolent Pleiadians and a group from Sirius have also made the attempt, but the first thing they ask the government to do is to disarm itself, because the government doesn't really know what to do with the technology they have, especially with the nuclear weapons. The benevolent races are afraid of what the government might do to them with these weapons. They have offered help in dealing with the problems here on Earth if they would only put their weapons away, but apparently the world governments don't want to abandon their killing capability. In South America, there are bases in the Andes Mountains. In Chile, there is a base north of Calama. In Brazil, there is a base at Morro Bravacuenva. In the United States, there are bases on one of the borders of Alabama, in Missouri east of Braxton, south of St. Paul, Minnesota, east of Amarillo, Texas. In New Mexico there are bases at Dulce, Little, and at White Sands. In Arizona, there are bases in the White Mountains and the Superstitious Mountains. In Utah, there are bases underneath Salt Lake. There are bases in Montana, Wyoming and Idaho. In Oregon there is a base under Mount Hood, which is a very significant one, and I will talk more about that one later. It's important, but not in a positive way. In California, there are bases at 29 Palms, Death Valley, Edwards F., and in Bishop, where there are landing ports. There are also bases in the Mojave Desert and a NASA secret underground base at Crow's Landing near Knight's Ferry. In Washington State, there are 2. There are several in Nevada, including Groom Lake and Sunspot. There are 19 miles of caverns and tunnels in the Yucca Mountains that are used for the construction of gravity craft. This area is also attached to S4. These facilities were designed and built by the Matthews Construction Company in Maryland, which was once owned by the Pazer family. See Alex Christopher's Pandora's Box. Now, relative to S4, the Greys gave our government 9 of their craft. Out of that 9, our government duplicated and created 53 other craft. The NSA now has at least 53 of these UFO-type craft, and virtually all of them are sitting on the moon at this time, 1995. In Alberta, Canada, there are bases near Calgary. In British Columbia, there's a base near Dawson Creek. In North Bay, Ontario, there is a large NORAD facility. Benevolent facilities. There's Mount Shasta, the Grand Tetons in Banff, Canada, and of course Mount Blanc in Switzerland. There is also one in both the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. I don't know a lot about it, but I can tell you this. I don't know if any of you are aware of the recent efforts of the government wanting to test sound devices in the ocean, off the coast of Hawaii and down to New Zealand. It's the military that is running this. I have been told by the Andromedans that the military, in using this technology, is trying to look for a particular benevolent mothership that they know is hiding south of the equator in the Pacific, and that they feel they cannot find it in any other way. They are thinking that the sound will do the trick. Geoelectrical grid anomaly launching sites. In the Indian Ocean, there is also a base at Diego Garcia Island. Now, the Earth has an electrical grid system around it, and there are times when this grid system shorts out, and wherever it shorts out, it creates anomalies. Well, 2 places that are predisposed to these anomalies, on a regular basis, are the area of the Bermuda Triangle and the island of Diego Garcia. My understanding is that when the grid shorts out, gravity becomes null and void. Whatever is caught within that area when the grid snaps back is blown up into space. What they would do is that they would send a craft from the moon, hook up a tow line to whatever went up from Diego Garcia, and simply haul it to the moon. Tractors, bulldozers and all kinds of equipment to build underground bases and to move Earth have been launched from Diego Garcia Island. They actually have platforms built, and they slide them out to where the anomaly is going to be, and they just sit there and wait for the anomaly to occur. Boom. Once it occurs, the item is instantaneously up there in space in the upper atmosphere. Now, this has been going on for more than 30 years, and all the while no one has had a clue. Genetic research at underground facilities. The Greys are genetic engineers. They are not the only ones. Most of the extraterrestrials out there are genetic engineers, because they value life forms, as opposed to gold and silver. That's their wealth. A lot of the genetic engineering and experimentation that is going on here on Earth is being done now by the Greys, who are also doing the same thing on Phobos, one of the moons of Mars. They're using this opportunity to try to satisfy their own agenda, which is to create new DNA and genetic stock that is clean enough to foster new physical life forms that are capable of regeneration and birth. As of right now, the Greys are destined for extinction. Through constant interaction and manipulation of the human race, they have created hybrids Grey human children. Editor note, for further data and pictures, see Matrix 2. There are many problems that come with this. The Greys are really interested in female genetic stock, because all the family lineages follow the female line, as far as they are concerned. Many new races have been created this way throughout our galaxy. It's not just something that came about new here. It's been going on for a very, very long time. Few races today remain as their pure original genetic stock, with the exception of 2 races that the Andromedans say are really clean. Those 2 races are the reptilians from Alpha Draconis, and the other are those that we know as the Elohim, which are a very ancient race of humans survived the wars in Lyrae. All other races in this universe, as far as the Andromedans know, are a mixture of hybrid genetic stock. The Greys themselves would like to be free of the Orion Empire, and will have no chance of survival if they do not create or match their body type or genetics with ours. You see, time is running out for them, and we are also evolving at a tremendous rate, on a spiritual level. So, even though what they're doing is inappropriate, they are caught in a very tough position themselves, because what they're doing to us has been done to them. This does not serve as a justification in any way. When any of these have a hybrid child, they take it outside the atmosphere of the Earth so that the child is fully aware of its reincarnational history and has no veil. Apparently, there is some kind of agreement that if you were born inside the atmosphere of the planet you have a veil. The Greys' agenda is to create a slave race, which is currently in full swing for the purposes of control, physical services and labor, sexual energy acquisition, as a food source, a stock for more hybrid experimentation, and as biological material. Apparently, they feed off of energy. If two people are fighting, for example, we create a lot of energy. They can feed off that energy. Whenever there are wars going on, there are a lot of UFO activity feeding off the energy of fear. Also, they are doing extensive research on the capabilities of the human brain and the nature of the soul. Many people who have been implanted by the Greys are aware of the fact that they have been put on a kind of machine and are being trained in some kind of activity. According to the Andromedans, the Greys are training humans to fight their war against the Draconians when they arrive here. Editor note: this was also the presumption in Matrix 2 when it was written in 1990. They intend on using humans as their soldiers against the reptilians, while at the same time preparing the planet for its new, soon-to-be arriving, owners. This has very serious implications for us. Now, I am not here to promote fear. I don't believe in that, but I am telling you what I have been told to tell you. We have boxed ourselves into this corner, and the only way we can change this is that we have to become consciously aware of what our world is really about, what is really going on here, and that we have to create a space of love. If we can create a space of love, the Greys, Draconians and other controlling races could not handle that kind of vibration. Now, either this is to happen or we are going to ask for some serious intervention here. Editor note: see our January 12, 1997 interview with Alex Collier for the complete discussion on the topic of intervention. In the case of serious intervention, there will be war in the heavens as the Bible has predicted, and the whole thing will be for our sake. Ashtar, Hutton and Savior scenarios. You know, this talk about Ashtar coming down here to save you. Ladies and gentlemen, it isn't going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. It's belief systems. When I was coming up here today, someone was reading some material to me by Hutton, who was saying the same thing: we were going to pick you up and take you to Mars. No thanks, I don't want to go to Mars. Editor note: that is where the Orion group is. Nobody is going to save you. According to the Andromedans, if you are sitting here waiting for a savior, you're not doing the work yourself. Now, who else but negative controllers would come down here and take you off the hook? For what purpose? You'd only recreate the situation again, because you haven't permanently evolved to the level of becoming your own savior. You haven't learned the lesson, and this is what their strongest message is. You have to do the work yourself. You are only responsible for yourself. Nobody is going to come down here and take you off the hook. They even said even if they do directly intervene, they are not going to babysit. That means that we have to get it straight. We as a race have to come together and decide what it is we want and how it is we want to live. We have to decide how we want to raise our children, what moral and ethical systems we want to have, etc. We don't need to be told by somebody else out there what is best for us. It never works, and it isn't going to work now. Most human beings would rather die than live as a slave. That is just our nature. Our soul. We need to be free, and we are coming to that point again. We were there. The National Security Agency, the Greys, implants in human clones. The Greys are currently 1995 monitoring the brainwaves of those they have implanted. The Greys have been implanting people for the last 100 years. So, generations of family members have had implants. The cloning of human beings, of life forms, was taught by the Greys to the NSA. The art of subversion was taught by the Greys to the NSA. On the two highest levels of human interaction with the Greys, within the NSA, there exist cloned human beings or human beings so heavily implanted, that according to the Andromedans, the NSA no longer considers them to be human beings. They are part of the Grey Group mind. These people have no free will and are essentially robots and their soul is trapped. The Grey Group mind complex and communication system. The Greys cloned their own race into a caste system, just like insects. They all basically think the same things at the same time. Editor note: as I pointed out in Matrix 2 in 1990, this is the reason that the Greys have a hard time when you throw them a curve. They don't do well with the unexpected. Their minds are like radios. If there are no radio waves, they don't do anything. In other words, The Greys themselves have computers which put out a vibratory wave carrying information, instructing them what to do. If somebody shut off the computers, they would stop in their tracks, because they don't think for themselves. They are part of a group mind. They are not individualized intelligence, like we are. They would very much like to create us to be like them. Now, this is not the case exactly with the aliens from Zeta Reticuli 1, who have the same technology but use it to heal, not to control. We'll get to that later. The Grey group mind conceives of the Creator as a mind. The Greys consider the Creator as a mind. What has happened is that they have completely detached themselves from their spiritual essence so long ago, that their physical existence and personality has become pure ego. This is also the orientation of the Draconians, who are pure ego as well. Many of the other races genetically altered by the Draconians are also experiencing the separation from their own essence. I don't understand the process or how it works, but they no longer believe themselves to be spirit, to be an essence. They are in fact trapped, physically and emotionally, in a purely physical existence, and therefore, that is all they see. They literally disown, or fractionalize themselves, away from their spiritual essence. That no longer becomes a part of them. Human beings have been known to do that to themselves, as well. You can fractionalize yourself into many different personalities. Now, with this dimensional compression that is going on, this is why we are seeing a lot of insane things going on. Ego is now being compressed on itself. It's imploding on itself, and you are finding huge pockets of incredible negativity, not only here, but in other parts of the galaxy as well. On Sirius B there is a terrible civil war going on right now. In Perseus, there are 21 systems getting ready to go to war in a battle between the Orion group and the benevolent races of the Andromedan Council. You have to understand, for people in this state of being, they associate their physical life and the ego as the same existence. They are totally detached. Those beings that refuse to acknowledge their spiritual essence and only associate with the physical and the ego are going to be removed from our universe and put somewhere else that is apparently in the process of being created. According to the Andromedans, the healing of all souls in this universe is not possible at this time, because some of these souls literally threaten the existence of universal consciousness. In other words, they are going to resist and there is no way they are going to make the leap, so they are going to be removed. Editor note: see the beginning discussion on pocket forming at the beginning of this book. Pockets will be formed holding them and new universes will be created for them to work on their problem. The Greys are very sophisticated in mathematics and energy sciences. It has been said that our military, at the time of the Holloman Agreement, had an exchange of personnel with these aliens, and that 16 military personnel were supposed to have been taken to the Greys' point of origin. They left us several of their own. Now, according to the Andromedans, it was really 109 human beings that were taken by the Greys. They did not end up being brought to the Greys' point of origin, Zeta Reticuli 2. The humans instead were taken to motherships and to Phobos, where they were experimented on. Viral technologies, human cloning and planetary surveillance. They have certain viral technologies to the National Security Agency, who in turn passed these technological developments on to lower levels within the military-industrial complex. In Africa, we find the testing ground for the AIDS virus. There is a reason for this. This type of biological technology was given to Ultra within the NSA. One of the NSA facilities that deals with this is under Fort Meade in Maryland. There are 19 acres of underground caverns with some of the most highly technological supercomputers in the world, that were built and designed inside this facility. They have never seen the light of day. This area, and the area we talked about before at Mount Hood in Oregon, are engaged in massive surveillance of the world's communications. The complex in Oregon is where our military is cloning human beings. I don't know what aliens are involved, but they are cloning human beings there. More historical review. In the late 1950s the Greys approached the Russians in regard to the idea of mutual exchange and signing treaties, but the Russians were already at the time included in the proceedings of the NSA, and chose not to sign an independent treaty, because they knew full well that the Greys would try to pit the United States against Russia. It is, in fact, and I have gotten this straight from Visayas, the Soviet Union, that informed John F. Kennedy of the presence of the Greys during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Andromedans have stated that the Russians were trying to blackmail the United States into sharing the alien technology. Thus, the Russians put the missiles in Cuba in order to attempt to intimidate the United States. The Russians became increasingly aware the NSA and the CIA were developing incredible technology and were not sharing it with the Soviet Union, as was the original agreement shortly after the Roswell incident in 1947. Apparently, Kennedy asked the CIA 3 times if the Russian allegations were true. The CIA lied twice to Kennedy, even though nuclear weapons were only 18 minutes away from striking the United States. They just lied to him. This prompted Kennedy to want to scatter the CIA to the winds. This is one of the more important reasons the black government saw Kennedy as a threat, and why Kennedy died prematurely. It was the desire of President Kennedy that some of this technology would reach the common people, and be used for the betterment of mankind. This was one of the reasons that he launched the public space program, in anticipation of the possibility that the people could share in some of this technology. Editor note: some of the data in the next paragraph duplicates some data given in the previous lecture, shown before, but not all of the data. Now, in 1953, satellites and radar showed large objects coming toward the Earth, and these were gray, time-traveling motherships. They were the same craft seen near Venus in 1787, 1788 and 1789. In 1635, it was reported that a large moon was seen near Venus, and was seen coming and going until 1767. The same type of incidents happened in the vicinity of Mars on November 25, 1894, when a large ship was seen illuminating parts of Mars. The same thing happened with Mercury in 1789, the Sun in 1859, and this same body that sits out there today has been dubbed Vulcan. It's a large mothership. During the total eclipse of July 29, 1878, astronomers saw 2 large planetary bodies the size of Venus between Mercury and Venus. According to the Andromedans, these bodies were Pleiadian and Andromedan motherships that had traveled back in time and were observing the Greys, who were at the time orbiting around the Sun. In 1783 and 1787, huge bright lights were reported on the Moon, mistakenly reported as volcanoes. They then lit up the dark side of the Moon. In February 1894, a comet was photographed striking a large dark object in our solar system. It happened to have wings, and according to the Andromedans, this was a Draconian mothership. The same phenomena occurred on April 4, 1892, and the Draconian ship was about 1/3 the size of the Moon, about 700 miles in diameter, and it had wings. Another Draconian mothership was observed on January 27, 1912. It was 250 miles in length and 50 miles wide and resembled a crow. It was sitting on the Moon. Religious programming of human cultures. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to offend anybody, but I am going to tell you just the way it has been presented to me. Okay? All you have to do is listen. If it doesn't feel right for you in here, then dismiss it. If it does feel right, and you get chills, then maybe you should start paying attention to it. Many religious operations have been undertaken by the Greys over the past 500 years for the purposes of manipulation and control of human belief systems, and to get us to compromise our free will to a savior-like image. Under these false pretenses, the Greys would be absolved from creating karma for themselves. Instead, they let us create the karma ourselves. It's such a setup, it really is. The power of belief systems can be used as fuel for the game of seducing people into believing that certain things are true. By the power created by these conscious thoughts, we can literally make these things occur and come true, whether they benefit us or not. These are real spiritual dynamics at work, here, and they are being used against us. According to the Andromedans, our physical bodies, and matter, are the embodiment of ideas or belief systems. Our universe consists of ideas and thought systems, condensed and turned towards itself, to create an originate spirit and energy. In other words, we really are gods. We really can do anything we want to do. They continue, we of Earth have evolved only in terms of technical and material sciences. Our spiritual evolution for the most part has been suppressed from us by a group of extraterrestrials, now the Black Government or the New World Order. Because, upon learning of these spiritual truths, the NSA and the World Government realizes that everything they have been trying to do, according to the Andromedans, could be swept away in a day, should humanity become enlightened. If 1 billion people come to the realization and decision that this is going to change, that we no longer want the current reality, then it will literally change with the setting and the rising of the sun. But, they stress that we need to be clear about what we want, which is part of the decision and responsibility that is ours. So, if we are going to create it, we have to take responsibility for it. The Shroud of Turin. According to the Andromedans, this one example of extraterrestrial manipulation and an assault on our belief systems. The holographic image on the shroud was created by the Greys in order to strengthen a belief in a savior. This belief system assists their plan for control, because humanity would love to give their power away to someone that appeared to be a true and legitimate messiah, because they have been taught to do that. The Greys know that few people truly want to accept responsibility for their own evolution. Most would rather be told what to do, than to realize the situation and take appropriate action necessary to free themselves. A staged second coming. To further Grey manipulation on the belief system level, there is also a plan in development, according to the Andromedans, to play out a staged second coming. This will occur shortly after the destruction of the world economy. We are not very far away from that. Maybe 6 years at the most. This being will be a cloned biological human being, who will be holographically be imprinted with information regarding spiritual truths contained in all Earth religious and metaphysical systems that the Greys have already implanted on the planet. He will strongly profess the Hindu philosophy. Why, I don't know, but this is what they are saying. The Andromedans continue, saying that the intent of this being will be evil, that the being will not have a soul. It is in fact a robotoid. A synthetic clone. The Greys have this kind of ability to stage this with their technology. This individual will be the image of the man on the Shroud of Turin. The Antichrist will not be the evil soul portrayed in the Bible. In fact, the Antichrist will, ironically, be someone who tries to express the truth, and who sees the United States government as the cause of all this evil. This is what they've said. Now, I have to add this, in defense of that belief system. The Vatican, in 1960, admitted that there were 14 plagiarisms in the New Testament. They refused to say what they were, but they said there were 14 of them. In other words, it wasn't God who wrote it, but they changed it, and they admitted it. So, you do with that piece of information what you want, okay? But, everybody is believing that this kind of event has to happen, and by us believing it has to happen, we're going to create it. And, they are sitting up there laughing at us. The incident at Fatima. The Greys are responsible for the Fatima episode in Portugal, where the Virgin Mary supposedly spoke to the children. In fact, according to the Andromedans, this was a holographic image of a woman, professed to be the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. During this incident, the sun supposedly fell from the sky and miraculously healed people. Using Grey technology, these apparent miracles did in fact occur, but they used light and sound beamed at these people to effect these changes. Now, this is technology that has been here on the Earth for at least the last 100 years or so, but it is against the law now in most places in the United States because it works. Color and sound technology. The reason that color and sound work is because the entire universe is a holographic projection, turned inside of itself. It's all a holograph. Virtually all the people present at Fatima were implanted during the missing time phase of this episode. Jesus and Mary are composite characters created by Council of Nicaea. A large ship positioned itself in front of the sun to create this occurrence. The reason that this is not a true miracle is because the biblical Jesus is a composite character, and as such is an allegorical myth. The Virgin Mary is also a composite character. These composites were made for the purpose of uniting religions of the ancient Roman Empire, so that their resources were not being used to constantly stop religious wars between different factions. From 310 AD to 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea created these composite characters. Some books that discuss this truth are Holy Blood, Holy Grail, Antiquities Unveiled, The Messianic Legacy, The Council of Nicaea, Gnosis and the Law. Reincarnation was written out of the Bible by Justinian and Theodora in 553 AD. Pollution and population. In the 1950s, the so-called meetings of the Jason Society were triggered by information given to the Ultra Unit and the NSA by the Greys about the world situation, regarding the subjects of pollution in our population. It was at this particular time that the Greys offered little assistance or sharing of technology regarding environmental issues. This has persisted, even until today. The Palladians have, in fact, offered more solutions than any other group to date, but they were turned away by the NSA. This prompted the first of three alternatives that are often discussed in UFO circles today. These alternatives were in fact a reality. The New World Order is in a major predicament. The Greys are 2,500 years ahead of us technologically. The black government is afraid to tell us the truth concerning this reality, because they fear a revolution, overthrow and self-preservation for the people who will want their scalps. This is what the Andromedans are saying. 2 large motherships are on the planet now hiding in the ocean. 1995. One is below the equator and the other one is in the Atlantic. I don't know who they belong to, but they are here. My feeling is that they are benevolent in nature, because the government has actually talked about implementing Alternative 4, which was to create a controlled pole shift, and the Andromedans have said that they would not allow this to happen. So, my feeling is that these ships are, in effect, there to anchor the planet on its axis. Attacks on the space program. Aliens have been more openly attacking us in space as time has progressed. It started with the Russian Mars probe, when it was destroyed. The Mars Observer was captured by reptilians on Mars. Also, closer to home, on December 1993, a Landsat satellite disappeared in orbit. It just winked out of existence. In August of 1993, the European Space Agency lost 2 communication satellites. Again, they just vanished from orbit. A Canadian Telsat was destroyed in our atmosphere on January 15, 1994, and was seen crashing to Earth. This was shot down by the Greys. Again, I don't know why. A NASA SATCOM-3 communications satellite vanished in May of 1979. It was just taken. 2 Soviet Malanaya satellites just vanished from orbit. Governments ask for help with Greys. Draconians respond, "Hail Bop, here's a scenario." The benevolent races have told the world governments that would help them, but they would have to dismantle their nuclear weapons. The Earth governments don't want to do this, because they don't know who to trust because of their own activities. However, the world government is so desperate to get rid of the Greys, that they apparently have put a call out asking for help, using the SETI program. Well, the Andromedans have told me that there is a group that has offered to help our Earth governments with the problem of the Greys, and even to give them weapons to fight the Greys. The ones who responded are the reptilians from Alpha Draconis. Ironically, the only real enemy the Greys have and that human beings on Earth have. Now, interestingly, the Greys actually work for the Draconians. It's all part of a setup. We will invite them in here, there will be no battle, and once they're here, we'll never get rid of the Draconians. The line of defense against the Orion and Draconian groups. The Pleiadians are assisting the Andromedan Council in an attempt to quarantine our solar system from the invading forces, namely the Orion group and the Draconians. The quarantine defense line is between Uranus and Pluto, and consists of a mixture of benevolent races, both physical and non-physical. Included are groups from the Pleiadian system, the Arcturus system, Andromeda, a group from Sirius, Reticulans, and others. This line of defense is really like a last resort, because apparently 2 huge gray motherships have already been turned back that were on their way to Earth and Mars. There were casualties on both sides during this process. The underground alien population in 1995. There are currently, 1995, over 15,000 Greys under the United States, and they are a renegade group of Reticulans who have not been to Reticuli for hundreds of thousands of years. They have been traveling through space in their arcs. Before they came to Earth, a process which also involved time travel, they were residing in the Sirius B system. The Andromedans have huge motherships on Jupiter, the moon of Ganymede and the moon Deimos. I don't know if they were actually on Jupiter when the comet hit, but they probably weren't. There are 3,000 Greys on the moon. 1995. Reptoid Redo. There are approximately 1,833 reptilians living underneath the United States. Their underground habitat ranges from a depth of 100 miles to 200 miles beneath the surface of the Earth. They generally live in caverns and the ancient tunnel systems created hundreds of thousands of years ago. They are not benevolent, and every once in a while they come up for a contact. They have been seen in New York City, Missouri, Chicago and in the southwestern states. These areas happen to be the largest areas, coincidentally, for missing human children, numbering in the thousands. The Andromedans have stated that 31,712 children have been taken by the reptilians over the last 25 years. In Linda Moulton Howe's book, Alien Harvest, there is mention of human body parts being seen in underground bases. The Andromedans confirm that we are being used for food. The Greys use our blood and the reptilians consume live human flesh. Their favorite human food is children. Editor note, not to belabor the point, but this material is discussed in great detail elsewhere in this section. More on the subject of walk-ins. The Greys are searching for walk-ins because of their desire to learn about the human spirit. Walk-ins are necessary at this particular time. They are higher evolved souls. There are 72,000 walk-ins on the planet right now, 1995, and are part of the Andromedan Council. In the next 3 years, 72,000 more will be coming. Editor note, gee, that's 134,000. Where have we seen that number before? All this is to balance the negativity being created. Because of the Council's laws of non-intervention, the Andromedan Council felt it necessary to intervene in another way that would not violate Council directives. Thus, the walk-ins, who are Earth human beings, are here to do that work. It's a backdoor approach. There are 1,531 actual human benevolent extraterrestrials on our planet right now, and where they are I don't know. But, they are here to record, report, observe and possibly assist some of the walk-ins. At some point they will be leaving, but they look just like us in our everyday lives. Washington, D.C. hasn't a clue what's happening. The regular government in Washington, D.C. hasn't a clue what is going on. They really don't. The black government itself consists of various levels. At the top they know everything. The lower levels only know small pieces. Knowledge is very compartmentalized, need-to-know basis. The total picture involves outrageous deceit and subversion of the public trust. Our Solar System and Earth's Future. A 1995 lecture by Alex Collier. Editor note, for this lecture series, an attempt was made to only include material and narrative that is not included elsewhere in this book. Some duplicated data is included in order to preserve continuity. Lecture. This is an interesting lecture, if I say so myself. There is some very specific information in it. I am not going to pretend that I understand all of the things that are happening that I am going to be telling you about. I am learning, just like you, about all of these things. Let me read you something. All of life strives to discover itself, and stretch its boundaries of self-awareness. Conscious life forms make decisions regarding their motivations. They also, at some point, create a vision of what will best serve their personal agendas or journey of growth. Tonight, I am going to share with you a probability of our solar system's future, which also includes us here on Earth. The universe is changing, evolving and creating right in front of us. Some of the changes have already occurred on our 9th, 10th, 11th and our new 12th density. According to the Andromedans, we on our level are just beginning to experience the feelings of change. We have not yet experienced the real movement and display of change in our galaxy, as of yet. What will the changes be? How will we experience them? When will they happen? These are all good questions. No one has all the answers yet. There is, however, one answer to consider, and that is by the end of October 2013, according to the Andromedan Council, all consciousness in this universe will be 4th density that is now 3rd density. Some of us, by that time, will actually be carrying 5th density light bodies with us. We will also have experienced a natural pole shift of the planet of 17 degrees, putting the new North Pole near Saudi Arabia. So, start looking for your alternative sources. We are about to discover the real power and love of creation. Isness, God, generator of dimensions, whatever you want to call it. The essence that created our universe, or the essence that creates energy that we use to create and manifest, is both inside and outside our universe. This is apparently the first time that it has been actually discovered by dimensional beings. The Andromedans and other races are aware of other dimensional universes within our universe, as well as other completely physical universes and dimensional time continuums. They are also aware of their vibratory rate and other basic elements which differ from those in our own universe. On March 23, 1994, 19 suns in our galaxy went through pole shifts. The North and South poles experienced either a 90-degree or 180-degree slip. The Andromedans feel that this is just the beginning. Now, this is the first time this has ever happened, and it all happened at once. It's a very significant thing in the universe. It doesn't mean a lot here, yet, but out there it means a tremendous amount. Changes are occurring in all the stars that are 8 billion years old or older, and there is something going on here. This phenomena occurred simultaneously with the emanation of the sound and color aquamarine frequency being carried into the universe from all the black holes. Nothing before has ever come out of black holes before since this initial creation of our universe, 23 trillion years ago. This type of universe change also gave birth to our universe. The Big Bang. How the Andromedans explain this is that apparently much of the energy and matter that we have in our universe, including us as energy sources, as souls, as consciousness, came from someplace else. In that other place, as it was evolving, there were certain energies that simply could not evolve with it, or they chose not to. Whatever the reasons were, pockets of resistance were formed, and as that universe went through its shift, these pockets grew until they burst. When they burst, matter just exploded and went everywhere. Almost every galaxy has a black hole at its center, because it is a portal to somewhere else. Now, what is happening now is that our universe is starting to shift, and pockets of resistance are starting to form in our universe containing negativity. What is on the other side of the black holes is unknown. It's an absolute don't-go area, even for projected consciousness. No information comes back. Yet, now this sound and color frequency is now emanating from all of them as of March 23, 1994. What is even more interesting is that this frequency is coded with programmed data that is affecting all the energy frequencies and dimensions in our universe. Now, according to the Andromedans, there are 11 prime creational densities, each containing within itself evolutionary densities. This new 12th creational density that has appeared is connecting all of the other densities all the way down. Now, instead of you having to change your physical form to evolve into a different form for a specific density, my understanding is that based on their preliminary findings, certain souls will literally be able to walk into the next densities, instead of having to change physical form and makeup. This frequency carries the color of aquamarine on our third density level, and another color on the other dimensional levels, even though the totality is only one color and one sound. According to the Andromedans, we should prepare for a huge leap in consciousness, whether we are ready or not. We will start to see this color in our rainbows. What will this consciousness leap be like? According to Visayas, it will be sudden to some and complete in its effect for some individuals. A lifting of the veil will occur, and you will remember your true essence. You will suddenly know everything. To others, it might be a slower process, but it will involve a growing awareness of the nature of one's environment. Now, the essence of what is happening is that it is a reintegration of our present dimensional levels into a new frequency pattern. It will also add a new color to each dimension. As this energy continues to form and build its polarity, it is drawing the existing primary creational densities upward to it. The single frequency at the 12th is drawing everything up to it. This frequency, according to the Andromedans, contains profound awareness, which has already changed the 11th, 10th and 9th density awareness levels already. New type of souls appearing in the universe. New souls have also appeared that have an awareness beyond anything known in our universe. My understanding is that a lot of this information comes from beings in higher dimensions that are talking with the Andromedans about what they're going through. These new souls have not made contact with any being yet, but according to the Andromedans these new souls are in an observational mode. There is no name given to them yet, because nobody knows what they are. Consciousness evolvement rate increased tenfold. Because of this new frequency, evolvement of consciousness has been sped up almost tenfold from its normal rate of evolution. A lot of you, I'm sure, are experiencing things moving very quickly on all kinds of consciousness levels. New frequency has purpose and direction. This new frequency does not carry a balance of positive and negative polarity, which also implies a specific purpose and direction. What that is at present unknown. For other universes are experiencing the same thing. This frequency and density shifting is also happening in for other universes at the same time it is happening here. Current moon bases and their history. A 1995 lecture by Alex Collier. Editor note: we have tried not to duplicate other information given elsewhere in this book and this lecture, other than material included for continuity. Consult the different index for further data. The other material on the moon starts on previous pages. More on early moon history. We're going to talk about the moon, and we're going to focus on the far side that we don't see. As I said in other lectures, the moon originally came from Ursa Minor and is 6.2 billion years old. It was one of 4 moons around the 17th planet of the system referred to in the Orion tongue as Chota. It was an outpost for members of the Orion group and was at one time, according to the Andromedans, inhabited by as many as 5 million military members from the Orion group. The moon was purposely put into the tail of a planetary asteroid, which brought it across the galaxy to our solar system, more than 11,000 years ago. The origin of the moon was not from the Earth, which is the theory that is taught in schools. The moon is older than the Earth. This same asteroid which dragged the moon here circles our galaxy every 25,156 Earth years. The moon has been inhabited periodically in its history for 1.8 million years. Now it's being inhabited again, and many of the original structures on the surface were destroyed during the Black League Wars, which was a battle fought by humans against the Orion Empire. The true military complex was underground. Entrances were at both poles, the Taurus Mountains and Jules Verne crater, far side, and Archimedes, near side. All these were the original entrances when the Orion group was there. However, the secret government has created more openings and is currently expanding the underground complexes. The expansion is for the operation of private scientific and military agendas for the New World Order. Many of the craters on the moon were used as spacecraft hangars. Large craters were capable of housing 200 or more craft. Some of the craters are as much as 170 miles wide. The personnel consisted of half human, half gray, and half human, half reptilian. The surface bases consisted of 9 domed cities. The vegetation was grown inside these domed structures. Small lakes were scattered around the surface. The remains of these domed structures were discovered by NSA astronauts, the Russians and the Apollo astronauts. The National Security Agency goes to the moon. The NSA astronauts were there in 1958. They have been there ever since, as has a secret portion of the Russian government called the Black Guard. Upon arriving on the surface of the moon, the NSA astronauts, with their gray tour guides, were taken to the underground facilities where the remains and skeletons of reptilian-like beings and human beings, as well as Orion technology, were located. This location has been identified by the Andromedans as underneath the crater designated Jules Verne on the far side of the moon in the southern hemisphere, and this underground facility is approximately the size of New York State. These underground facilities contain huge lakes, transplanted Earth planet life, and alien manufacturing equipment that was abandoned and left there from the previous occupants of the facility a long time ago. There are also food storage facilities and spacecraft hangars, which are also now being used and operated by human beings from Earth. Alien writing and script is evident on the walls of hollows connected some of the areas of the facility. Also discovered were 8 sealed vaults. Information regarding the contents of the vaults has not yet been disclosed to me. Artificial environments are being created all the time to house hand-picked personnel by the world government. The Andromedans project a potential population on the moon of 600,000 based on the amount of expansion work currently in progress. Much contact between World Order faction and non-friendly alien factions is occurring on the moon. The operation of these facilities was managed by the NSA and the Russian Blackguard 1947, although the British were later brought on into the operation, primarily for reasons of financial funding. As mentioned before, the NSA currently has 53 Earth-built gravity craft stationed on the moon, full-time. Planetary defense weapons built on the moon. Weapons are being built on the moon, such as particle beam weapons, nuclear bomb satellites, antimatter weapon systems and plasma beam weapons. The reason these weapons are being built on the moon is because if there was an invasion of Earth, the moon is considered our first line of defense. How did everything get up there? Outside of using anti-gravity technology, which the Greys had given the NSA, anti-gravity anomaly areas were also used. Editor note, see references and index to Diego Garcia and Pine Gap. Alien technology is being used to create an atmosphere on the moon to permit extended habitation, and this process is taking a great many years to accomplish. In the meantime, food is being grown underground. There is a military base on the far side of the moon. The first manned mission and landing on the moon was in 1958 by the Russians and the NSA, as was previously stated, and it became an official colony in 1961. I'm talking about the facility that was as large as New York State. The structures that were built on the surface were designed by JPL. These dome structures were built first on the moon, to test them, and then on Mars. One of the other corporations that was very important in this effort, and who actually did do the construction, was the Bechtel Corporation, who has a covert construction team that works with the NSA. Now, the reason we only see one side of the moon is by design. The dark side of the moon truly represents the dark secret of how long extraterrestrials have been watching the Earth. Large mass structures, functioning as weights, have been designed into the structure of the moon to keep it from rotating on a normal basis, and they are located at both poles. These are magnetic in nature. When the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, we had already been there for some time. The NSA had already established a colony there 8 years earlier, and the technology involved was not shared with the lower echelons in NASA or even the military. NASA was used as a blind to keep the people of the United States ignorant of what was really happening in space, and is still fulfilling that function. Some of the greatest scientific minds on our planet who have vanished without a trace were taken to the moon and to Mars in an attempt to start a brand new society. Engineers, architects and people from every walk of life went there. Alternative 4, stage or controlled pole shift. Q. I know what alternative 1, 2 and 3 were. What was alternative 4? AC. Remember that at one time the world government was colonizing Mars. They built a huge base there that at one time held 300,000 people. In March of 1989 it was invaded by the Orion Group, who destroyed the base. The Orion Group is not friendly to us. Since the world government realized there was now no place to go, they had to come back here. According to the perception of the world government, population is a problem, and the corporations have polluted the environment. The fourth alternative is to stage a controlled pole shift while they are safe in their underground facilities, in order to eliminate most of the planetary population and artificially cleanse the environment. Right now, 1995, the Earth is tilting, and the wobble is 72-85 feet every 14 months and it's getting wider. Editor note: this is referred to as the Chandler wobble in geophysics. The implementation of Alternative 4 involves the placement of strategic nuclear weapons underneath the South Polar ice cap and detonate them. They could cause the cap to slip, which would cause the planet to rotate 90 degrees on its axis. Within 24 hours, 83-85% of the population of the planet would drown. The Andromedans, who have technology 4,700 years ahead of us, have said they would not allow this to happen. This might indicate why the world order is spending so much time arming itself on the moon, because they think they are going to be able to deal with things when help comes. They won't be able to. The moon will simply be pulled out of orbit, moved away from Earth and dealt with by the Council. Clones and creation of ourselves. This evening, the lecture will be on clones, weather modification and the creation of ourselves. It's nice of you to come. It's going to be, as Ed Sullivan would say, an action-packed evening. Operation Deep Freeze, Planetary Manipulation Program. Now, we've all heard of the world government. It's not just a group of bankers and politicians. In order to have some teeth and to make the governments do what they want, and to be able to control and manipulate governments and world events, they have to have another organization. This organization, from what I have been told by Moreni, started originally in the CIA. Shortly after it became the CIA in the 1950s. This operation, which exists today, is called Operation Deep Freeze. The way it works is that members of the CIA, FBI, NSA, KGB and Mossad are declared dead, given false identities and put into active service in the capacity that they can go to any country, having total anonymity, do what they want and they can't be touched. They are outside all laws. In 1988, according to Moreni, there were 12,310 of these people. Today, there are over 26,000 of them. What brought this whole thing up is that the lecture I did last Saturday, a gentleman brought up something about a mark on the palm of the hand. So, I took that information and went to Moreni. I said, well, what about this? Well, I opened up a can of worms. I had no idea. Anyway, this group is called Deep Freeze. It's called that because they were all supposed to be dead, but they were not. And it is these individuals that basically run messages back and forth between world governments. In other words, messages on what to do, when to start a war, when not to start a war, when to bomb, when to kidnap, etc. It is also this same group that is in charge of the doubles and clones. Now, folks, some of this might be really hard for you to understand, or to even relate to. I'm just here to offer the information. I don't have a problem with this information. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. Now, I'll start and I'm going to have to give you specific times, dates and background information so that you can go back and try to prove it wrong. Okay? I asked for specific information because I know that on the believability scale this is pretty tough. Again, this information is what the Zenitans race from Andromeda have provided me with. Regarding Henry. Okay. On January 26, 1979, Nelson Rockefeller, the ex-vice of the United States, was murdered. He did not die of a heart attack making love to his secretary, as most of us have been told. When he passed away, or was killed, his next in command was Henry Kissinger, who was apparently a Rockefeller devotee, and Kissinger thought he could take Nelson's place as far as helping to run the Rockefeller empire. On February 4, 1979, Kissinger left for London from Washington. Now, this is just after the funeral for Nelson Rockefeller. From London he went to 2 secret destinations in France, then back to London. At 11 p.m., he left Heathrow Airport in a private jet back to Washington, D.C. He was accompanied by his wife, now his ex-wife, Nancy. According to Moreni, there were 26 Earth-built spacecraft watching the plane. At 7:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 5, 1979, all contact with Kissinger's plane was lost. Now, I'm giving you the specific information so that you can go back in time and try to disprove this or validate it, whatever the case may be. The plane never arrived in Washington. Several days later, his aides claimed that he was on vacation somewhere. According to Moreni, the real human being Henry Kissinger has never been seen or heard from again. He was cloned. On March 9, 1979, film clips of Henry Kissinger were put together for it to appear that he was doing a real interview on the newscast. The same thing occurred on March 25, 1979, for a hoax television interview on Meet the Press. According to Moreni, if you listen carefully, questions put to Kissinger are not answered but he says something else. They didn't know where Kissinger was when they created these mock broadcasts, and they didn't want to create a panic within the structure of the government, because Kissinger had been carrying vital intelligence information back and forth. Moldakian Redo, a shadow of your smile. Now, the Rothschild family, and those close to it, are the souls of the leaders of the former Moldak, a planet that was destroyed in the past and now remains as the asteroid belt. They have continued to be reborn in the same family in order to retain their control. Many members of the shadow government in the United States and many individuals in Russia are also souls who were conscious of themselves and originated on Moldak at one time. Most of these Moldakian souls who were physically incarnate in Russia have been removed, and according to Moreni this was done by a group of Pleiadians, who apparently have a huge base in Russia and are actively involved on that end. There are still a large group of these souls having their origin with Moldak that are incarnating in human form, and conscious of who they are. They're all into war, hate, greed, power and control. That's what they're all about. Unfortunately, most of those who are incarnating and are still in physical form are in the United States, underneath us in the underground cities and facilities. Double your pleasure, double your fun. There is in our world today an intelligence war of sorts going on between doubles and clones. The nations on our planet today that can literally create doubles and clones are the United States, Russia, Britain and Israel. We're not talking peanuts. Here during April of 1979, for the period of a week and a half, President Carter and Vice President Mondale were out of public view. Now, if you will remember, Carter was looking very sick and apparently he was. He was dying of leukemia and cancer, as a result of material injected into his food by the CIA. He went to Georgia with his family for a 10-day scheduled vacation. Walter Mondale supposedly went to Iceland, Scandinavia and the Netherlands. In other words, they had a double for him. The real Walter Mondale was executed by Operation Deep Freeze on the evening of April 20, 1979 in New Richmond, Wisconsin. On April 21, 1979, President Carter and his family were executed. I know this sounds hard and unbelievable. Editor note, actually, Dr. Peter Better, a man with a list of impressive credentials a mile long, maintained this fact adamantly, before he was killed. I have seen the material, and the documentation was impressive. They've all been replaced by clones. Jimmy Carter has had at least 18 clones since he was killed in 1979. The person we see, and the person who recently went to Korea in 1996, is not a real human being. He is what they call a synthetic. I am sure you're all asking, how could this be? There's no way I would have talked about this unless I could give you some, nuts and bolts. Never clone when home alone. What is the difference between doubles and clones? A double is more or less a person acting like another person, who has been cosmetically changed to look like that person. A clone is a synthetic biological organism with a holographically imposed memory complex. In 1953, scientists named Watson and Crick discovered the double helix molecular structure of DNA. During the 25 years following that, many developments have come about, including test tube babies, artificial microbes, artificially produced clones and exact duplicates of various creatures. These duplicates are created in underground laboratories in Mount Hood, Oregon, Sandia Laboratories in New Mexico and at Fort Meade, Maryland, amongst other places, with the cooperation of regressive extraterrestrials. An organic clone can be created and can be programmed to do whatever desired. They are not human, but a kind of computerized animal that looks and acts like a human. Like any man-made thing, a copy is never perfect, and small discrepancies do exist. Merrily we clone along. The first successful clone was put into action in June 1975. Okay. A biological computer modeled after the brain is what is grown inside clones. Editor note, I became aware of the existence of biological computers a long time ago. Such computers were said to have been brought to Vietnam in 1968 for some kind of testing. I was there in 1970. The Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical Corporation has been very instrumental in creating this technology. Computers exist today that can do virtually everything that you, as a human being, can do. Editor note, it has been estimated that computer technology is at least a century ahead of what you see around you, and technology in general has advanced about 40 years for every year that has gone by since World War II. Achieving the ultrasonic cerebral hologram. Man-made biological computers even contain a plasma-like material which circulates through a viscera-like envelope that allows them to be totally self-healing. In other words, they can to a great extent repair themselves. The key to simulating a human being, however, is the clone's ability to simulate their behavior, and this ability depends on the programming in the brain. This programming is done using three-dimensional holographs. This process was evidently discovered at Novosibirsk, a science city in Russia, where they discovered exactly how the brain works. This discovery was the key to achieving believable clones. Now, an ultrasonic cerebral hologram must be obtained of the person who is to be simulated. This procedure is painless to the person, and most people who are to be simulated don't even know this is being done to them when it is happening. The biological computer, the cloned brain, is then caused to form according to the recorded data in the holographic cerebral hologram obtained from the original source subject. In other words, they take the image, project it into a clone, and allow the brain inside the clone to grow exactly like the original source model. The body is already there and they grow the brain inside it. The Greys gave us this technology. They can accomplish this whole process within 90 days, creating a believable clone of an adult human being. All they need to grow the body in which the brain is later to be grown is 3 cells from the original body. Now, although the cerebral hologram automatically duplicates the memory of the original person, portions of the brain of the clone may be made to deviate from the entire holographic print. So, they can put information in there that did not exist in the original person's brain. The result of all of this is a programmable biological computerized brain, and a clone that knows essentially everything which the original person knew. They can be programmed for suicide missions, or missions too dangerous for normal humans such as specialized missions into space or time, or they can be used as they are often used now, for insolent invasion of world planetary governments. Here's just a few of the people who have been cloned. Carter, Mondale, David and Lawrence Rockefeller, and Defense Secretary Brown, cloned April 6, 1979. On July 5, 1979, Carter was supposed to give an energy speech. It was cancelled and the home-cloned family of the Carters were sent to Camp David. The original Carter clone was burning out. Camp David appears to be the place where many people in government are replaced with clones, so if you get a personal invitation to go to Camp David, I would decline if I were you. Is Clinton a clone? Rumor has it. They should have cloned Hillary, that's what they should have done. She's the mastermind. Anyway, on July 11, 1979, the Wall Street Journal reported that President Carter had a nervous breakdown. Clones do not have nervous breakdowns, per se, but they may become unstable in certain ways. On July 15, a Sunday, Carter gave his energy speech, and 2 days later on July 17, The entire presidential cabinet and senior White House staff members resigned, all at once. This is coming from Moreni, who is asking us to remember this. In other countries, it would have meant that the government has fallen, but not in the United States. The Carter clones had some trouble in the beginning because of real instabilities in the brain of the human being we knew as Carter. A new type of clone has also been created recently. It's called a genetic synthetic. Genetic synthetics, neo-Darwinism at its worst. The programs involving genetic synthetics started in November 1980, by the CIA and Grays operating within the National Security Agency. They are generated using transmutation of certain tissues extracted from cattle. This process grew out of experiments which began in 1959. Now, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Cattle mutilations. Editor note, contemplate that, will you? The right stuff. Astronauts Young and Crippen are clones. The real humans were killed on the Space Shuttle Columbia on November 24, 1979. The training shuttle Enterprise was given a new name and these clones landed for public viewing at Edwards F. Editor note, Dr. Peter Better also maintains that Young and Crippen were synthetics, in a very detailed review in his audio letters. Ref. Audio letters transcripts, page 106. Thanks to Biagio for supplying this data. Clone questions and answers. Q. Can clones be differentiated from real people in any measurable way? AC on a physical scale, the real way to tell a real human from a clone is that the clone does not have an aura energy field. Editor note, to be perfectly accurate, there is a slight field around the head, which contains the biological processors, but it is not like the field around the head of a normal human. Q. Do they realize that they are clones? AC. I don't know. I don't think they would realize it. If they are essentially living computers, they are programmed to believe whatever it is that has been programmed into them. Nothing more, and nothing less. Q. Was the reason Carter had 18 clones because they were trying to perfect something, or just because his neurological structure had so much instability? AC. I think it was a combination of both. Q. Back in 1978 and 1979, they were launching some really strange military satellites. AC. Many satellites put in orbit, one in particular by Young and Crippen, which is why apparently they had some trouble or were killed and duplicated, were developed by the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO. They were spy satellites, but were also equipped with tungsten shields and powerful dynamic gas lasers weapons, and designed to defend themselves against alien aggressors. Q. Are there other areas where cloning facilities are maintained? AC. Other areas in Russia are at the space facility at Semipalatinsk, and at Area 51 in the United States, where they are also building gravity craft, which the Andromedans called ISVs or interplanetary space vehicles. They are building the same things at the two Russian cities I mentioned. 11. Weather Modification Engineering and Technology. Operation Certain Sentinel. OK. Weather Modification. The weather modification operation is called Operation Certain Sentinel. Factions and world intelligence are in control of this operation from space and from the moon. On October 25, 1979 it was reported in the press that a satellite had monitored a low-yield nuclear explosion on September 22, 1979. On February 21, 1980 it was claimed by CBS News that this 1979 explosion was Israel's first atomic bomb test, which was assisted by the government of South Africa. This was not true. No radiation. No fallout. No gamma rays, X-rays or neutrons were produced. According to the Andromedans, what they had seen was a twin firing of particle beam weapons at an area in the ocean from the moon. This event was part of a weather modification test of the ability to create large storms at sea, and then in the future, to guide the storms to the shores of a specific not-so-favored nation. According to the Andromedans, much of the rain in the Midwest, and the tornadoes and snowstorms this past winter were aggravated and exaggerated by weather modification stations on the moon. Editor note, the El Niño cycle in 1998 was overlaid with these type of operations from the moon. Production of weather changes, the process. According to Moreni, currently, in your hierarchy, there is a secret project called the Texas Project that is underway. We will give you more information on this. Well, I haven't got that specific information yet, but I'm sharing with you what I have. Here's how they do it. Weapons on the moon enable storms to be generated artificially at sea, or over large lakes, then guided to a specific target or location by modifying upper atmosphere electrical charges. Hurricane Allen was created in this way on August 3, when it hit the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, according to the Andromedans. Now, I remember this storm. It hit the Gulf Coast with 125 miles per hour winds. And, it appeared almost out of nowhere. It was very early in the season, and it was seen as a fluke. Now, they were doing this on purpose. They want to create weather catastrophes all over the planet so that we all become stuck in survival mode, and to get us to come together and approve a one-world government to protect and save us. Production of artificial earthquakes. Now, natural earthquakes are one thing. If you remember during the lectures, I said that many earthquakes would not be natural ones. However, natural earthquakes can be triggered by artificial induction. The Northridge quake is a good example of this. Many people remember seeing a flash of light before this quake started. This is exactly what Moreni was describing when he talked about the use of particle beam weapons. All they have to do is generate beams from 2 points and cross them at a specific location on the planet. It creates a flash and a pressure will move down into the earth, reverberate somewhere in the crust and come back up and induce an earthquake. Now, one of the only things keeping the United States economy together is the state of California. Devastate that, the United States economy is history. Most overseas transactions from China, Japan, Hong Kong and the Philippines come through Los Angeles and San Francisco. 12. On creation. This information was given to me on February 4, 1988. It is from Visayas and it is about creation. Now, this is word for word and I apologize if you have trouble understanding it. This is the first time I am reading it in public. Your scientists understand the atom to contain neutrons, protons and electrons, combining in various ways and bonds to create the basic building blocks of your nature. From this starting point, atoms combine to form molecules and on we go up the scale till you reach a blue whale. But consider the atom. First, let us explain to you its properties from the standpoint of motion as we see it. Are the atom and its elements composed in a predetermined structure, with the neutrons, protons and electrons all obediently lining up and counting off? The answer is no. What you have is a mad dance. An entirely unpredictable one. As the electrons jump from point to point, within the limits of this sphere, never stopping, never falling into any consistent pattern or ritual. Now, consider this, Alex. The smallest, most basic unit of physical matter is one entirely unpredictable. Constantly spinning and dancing. What does this tell you about the solidity of your precious physical matter? There's an answer. But to return to your atom, where do these tiny building blocks, these minute elements, come from? Are they in fact the smallest unit of matter, or can we divide them further and further? This question is unanswerable in your scientific terms. It presupposes that the origin of all of your physical third-density matter is physical matter. That stuff must come from stuff. This is not the case. Intent is the origin of physical matter. Intent. It is as if there were an invisible membrane on one side of the physical reality that you know, and on the other side is invisible machinery, the intent of the isness, which makes it all possible. Intent is the key word for you and your other teachers. Desire, if you prefer, can also be used, but it is the isness whose desire and intent to explore itself in all possible manifestations that creates your physical world. That intent begins at the very smallest unit of matter. An electron then is the first hesitant physical manifestation of your intent, as it eases through the membrane into physical life and begins to joyfully dance. There are pockets, then, gaps in that membrane which when energized with enough intent, transform that intent into a physical unit. And once an electron has been given birth, in such a manner, it calls back to the isness and sends its own intent back to the isness, begging for its playmates to join it. So, that can create and assist you in creating a brave new world. This makes it easier for other units of matter to follow, as they are denser and therefore created by a stronger burst of intent than the electrons. Now, let's talk about that. What he's saying is that our intent to manifest in the physical creates electrons. Electrons then create and copy themselves. Okay, but what happens is they copy the original intent. Now, if you remember, I have tried to share with you their viewpoint that most of us have gotten so caught up in the idea of being in the creation, maintaining the creation, that we forgot to strive toward the Creator. So, we are expending so much energy trying to keep this together, as opposed to changing it and creating something much better. Do you follow? It's so subtle. And this is how we have been controlled and manipulated. We are not seeing ourselves beyond our physical selves. Okay. Like a game of tug-o-war, the electron sent back its desire to engage in the joy of physical creation. This desire helps ease creation into its brethren elements. Now, they talk funny and I can't help that. And so, in a wondrous exchange, not only is physical matter created out of desire of the isness itself, but also the joyful song of physical matter reaches back through space and time and connects with the body of intent, and across that invisible membrane, and pulls more of itself into being. Physical matter then creates itself, but only after we originally create the intent. The exuberance of the atom. Now, just focus on your intent. The more you believe it, the further it will manifest itself because you, with your intent and your belief, will give that energy to the physical intent that you just created and allow itself to simply manifest. You create your reality, now your neighbors. We had a 3-hour lecture on the words intent, wish and want. And, when you say I wish something, or I want something, you're manifesting that you don't have it. But, when you're saying I intend and attempt, you're manifesting and you have it. The word intent is a command. So, let's just say a large percentage of people say, there will be no earthquake this year. The chances drop. The problem is that most people do not realize the power they have. Now, where was I? Okay, Versace continues. The exuberance of the atom is multiplied in the wonder of a molecule which astonishes itself in the miracle, with a single-celled organism, and on up the ladder to these simply unimaginable, complex organisms that is you, and all of your brothers on Earth. You are all composed of uncountable such atoms and molecules. Every one of them jumping for joy to join in the partnership to create who you think you are. We emphasize that the natural state of the world is one in which love and fulfillment are the easiest paths to follow. It is much more work to bring yourself negative experiences than it is to deny beauty and wonder. So, don't deny the beauty and wonder of your own beings or turn deaf ears on a song of molecules that compose you, that you stray from the path of fulfillment. The problem with clones and spirit. Now, the grid, your energy field, is a grid of intent. Your energy field is what keeps you together because you are literally created from your own intent. That is why spirit can attach to us. Do you follow? If an organism or a structure is created, cloned or copied, spirit cannot attach to it. This is the problem the Greys have with the hybrids, and this is why the human clones do not have an energy field, because spirit can't attach to it. And this is also because there was no intent in its creation in terms of self-maintaining consciousness. There was, in your terms, no spiritual intent to create it. The non-physical pattern of your body is composed of virtually uncountable blocks of intent. Each assigned a particular function, and each specifically directed toward the creation and sustenance of a particular part of your body. As long as you restrict your inquiry only to the physical forms perceivable, you will all have questions and no answers. Just as the atom is constructed or originates out of intent, and not physical matter, so does the body find its origin in a plane quite hidden from your scientific instruments. The blueprint for the body is not contained in a genetic structure. The chromosomes simply reflect the greater origin or the intent. It is the grid work, the structuring of intent and desire that serves as the blueprint for your bodies. And, that intent is then literally flushed out to create the shape of the body. Q. Do all organisms have a soul? AC. No. Apparently they have intent, but the chief cook and bottle washer of all that intent is the soul. Some life forms, as a group, have herd souls. An example of this in practice is when you see a flock of birds all turn at the same time. These type of souls, however, are not like our individualized souls. They are more like a collective consciousness. Q. So in actuality, what is actually controlling the sustenance of the human body and the normal human is our own consciousness, projected from the 11th dimension, which is in fact us. AC. Yes. You know. Well, you're already having the intent because you are not vaporizing in front of us. I think the whole point in them sharing all of this with us is for us to be able to trace back where the intent is actually coming from, and for us to see ourselves for who we really are. Q. As the population increases, does that mean that there are more souls? AC. There's more intent. Other beings who want to express themselves here. The soul creates the intent. The intent is you. A population increase is just more souls wanting to have intent here. According to the Andromedans, there were the same amount of souls or spirits in our universe until March 23, 1994, when several new ones apparently stepped in. This was when the new 12th density started to create itself, because of the intent of the ISNES. 13. Colonies on Mars. Secret colonies on Mars. I want to thank all of you for coming here and allowing me the space to share this with you, so I don't have to carry it any longer by myself. The purpose of the lectures is to inform you specifically of the extraterrestrial intervention in our development and the development of mankind. Mankind has been fascinated with Mars ever since time began. The story of Mars that has been shared with me by the Andromedans is both compelling and quite fascinating. Unlike some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, the moon of Earth and the planet Venus, Mars actually originated in our solar system. It is 6.1 billion years old, and its inner sun, which all planets ever had, is burned out. So, the inside is cold, dark and wet. The surface appears to be desolate, sandy and windy. However, Mars is changing, and it has been changing for the last 30 years. The Andromedans say that Mars is getting closer to the Sun every 3 years, and the 200-mile-an-hour storms are becoming less and less frequent. Every year, the polar caps are showing more and more of a change of seasons. The technology does exist today to enable Mars to sustain human life as we know it. According to the Andromedans, given the correct coordination of events in terms of technological applications, Mars could be fully habitable for human life in only 20 years. One of the moons of Saturn also offers us this possibility. Mars is a part very similar to that of Earth. It is a history of repeated colonization and life. According to Moreni, Mars was the first planet in our solar system to explore and colonized. When civilizations were coming to our solar system, they stopped first at Mars. Mars at one time had an ocean and an atmosphere. It was also in a different orbit than it is now. It had plant life and some very basic life forms which didn't evolve there, but were brought to both Mars and Earth 189 million years ago by traders, explorers and miners from Alpha Draconis, Ursa Major and Minor, Lyrae, the Pleiades, Zeta Reticuli and Sirius. Now, there have been some other groups that have passed through here, but those groups were predominantly those who worked our system for minerals, ores, biological samples and all kinds of things. When they came, they always seemed to leave something behind. Some of the life forms that have been and will be discovered on Mars are exactly identical to life forms we have here on Earth. Space travel has existed in our galaxy for 4.4 billion years, according to what the Andromedans have said. The fossil records of both Earth and Mars apparently show that most life forms have had very little actual evolution and appear almost fully formed. In other words, they just suddenly appeared on the scene because they were brought here, according to the Andromedans, by early space explorers and biological engineers. Every time they came, they tinkered with life forms. Apparently, 69.3 million years ago a very large planetary asteroid came through our solar system, laden with a lot of debris. This asteroid, according to Visayas, was so magnetically powerful that as it came through it ripped Mars from its original orbit, which was nearer to the Earth, and pulled it 19 million miles further out. All this happened in a very short period of time, and this devastated everything on the planet, ripping off the atmosphere and causing 3 successive polar shifts in as many days. Although this asteroid left Earth's atmosphere reasonably intact, Mars would take tens of millions of years before it was able to host even the most basic life forms. According to the Andromedans, Mars even had dinosaurs on it at one time, and the fossils of these beasts have been found by the teams that have been sent there. Eventually we will hear about this when and if things become more open. According to the Andromedans, Mars has been periodically inhabited for 3.8 billion years, and that there are ruins all over the planet. Most of the ruins are buried under hundreds of feet of sand, just like here on Earth in the Gobi Desert, where there are ruins of ancient cities. Now, most of us have heard about Cydonia and the pyramids on Mars. There are also war ruins in the Cydonia region that have not been found yet. It is interesting that the word Al-Qahir, the Egyptian word that means Cairo, also means Mars, and that this has been in the Egyptian language for thousands of years. Strange coincidence. Ruins on Mars. The area known as the Tharsis Ridge contains ruins of an ancient city approximately 69 million years old. The Utopia region also holds the ruins of a city equally as old. These cities have been buried for 69 million years. A really interesting area is called Mariner Valley Canyon, where there is an ancient Lyran city that has been buried for 113 million years. There is a vast network of underground tunnels and caverns under this area. This area is where the Earth Base Eve is located. Earth Base Eve. The Earth base on Mars called EVE is a vast complex built originally millions of years ago, reactivated with the help of the Greys for the Earth World Government. It stretches over an area of 118 miles and is 3 levels deep in some places. It housed approximately 300,000 human beings, and the deepest portion is 6,200 feet below the surface. It has 4 openings to the surface consisting of 2 elevator shafts and 2 pressurized hangar entrances, complete with elevators. In other words, if you are flying in a ship, you fly into a hangar, which closes, and you are pressurized, dropping you down into living quarters. That's how the whole thing is done. Earth Base Atom. Much of the hardware taken to Mars, as I mentioned once before, came from the Moon first, via Russia and Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. The area known as Krystalinitia, or the Plains of Gold, is the location of the Earth colony, and east of there is a city dubbed Atom. There used to be a large freshwater lake in this area long in the past. There are essentially 3 large domed structures built into the mountain range there. The largest of these domes stretches 2.6 miles in diameter, and the other 2 average a mile in diameter. Each of these dome structures is connected by tunnels to the other domes. The largest dome is built 1,000 feet into the surface of Mars. Underneath the mountain range where Atom is located, there is another tunnel which leads to a cavern area that is 7 square miles in size. They don't have any idea what is inside this cavern area, because the Orion group has a force field which shields them from view. Nobody can see what they are doing in there. Orion Group redo. In March 1989, the Russian Phobos probe took pictures of motherships landing on the surface of Mars, as well as a picture of one of the scout craft firing at the probe, just before it exploded. One of these large ships, 250 miles long, landed at an old Orion Group base that has been reactivated. The base is more than 1 million years old and is completely underground, occupies 64 square miles, contains 5 levels and extends to 8,500 feet below the surface. It was fully operational as of June 1994, and contains 2,111 scout craft and over 100,000 Orion and Draconian troops. The Andromedans are real specific when they say troops. The Cydonia region was the last base occupied by the Pleiadians, Lyrans and Sirians when our solar system fell to the Orion group about 317,000 before Christ. That base was partially destroyed in that attack. NSA lands on Mars in 1959. The first Martian landing by the NSA Black government was in March 1959, when 3 craft were sent to the Cydonia region. Only 29 military and scientific personnel went on this first mission. The fortress area housed the craft and the workers while EVE was being reopened with the assistance of the Greys. The construction that was done was performed by the same groups that had done construction on the Moon, the Army Corps of Engineers, Bechtel, A.A. Matthews, Robbins Corporation, Secor, and scientists and engineers from JPL. All of the personnel in this project had no families to worry about them, and no records on their existence, except for personal memories of people on Earth, have been wiped clean by the NSA Ultra and Blue Moon units Alpha and 2, who recruited personnel for this mission. All this was done on the premise that the Earth was going to self-destruct due to pollution, population and disappearing natural resources. The bases were completed in 1968. The Andromedans have said that the Black government would do anything to maintain secrecy on this matter. In March of 1989, 30 years to the month of the landing on Mars, a group of Orion and Draconian forces invaded the Martian colonies and all communication between the Moon bases and Mars ceased. Some of the greatest talent and minds are stuck on Mars. 300,000 humans out of communication. The American and Russian Mars probes were sent, subsequently, to see what they could observe on Mars, and they were destroyed or taken out of action from the surface of Mars. When we start to see ships in the skies, whose will they be? I've been told that the very first mass sighting of ships that will be seen in the United States will be our own. They'll be the ones that our government has actually built. It won't be the aliens. It will be our own. The first real big signs will be in the area of New Mexico, because it is the area most controlled by the government and the Greys. They have that area so sealed up that nothing could go wrong there. 4. The holographic record of Christianity. Spanish version, Q. Can you be specific on what the Andromedan viewpoint is on Christianity, especially in view of the fact that they have holographic access to all events that have happened on Earth? I mean, what are some of the specifics? AC, you know, I don't like talking about this, Because I was raised a Catholic. I was an altar boy. The truth broke my heart. You know, to find out that what I thought was reality really wasn't. Where I'm at with it is very personal, but I'm not counting on anybody to come down and save me. The Andromedan perspective of the whole scenario is really different than what we've been told. Q. Well, it's apparent that there were several characters in history with the name Yeshua, translated loosely as Jesus. There's Yeshua ben Joseph, etc. How did all this develop? AC. Okay. Basically what happened was that the Catholic Church created a composite character, because at the time they were expending a lot of resources putting out religious wars. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but like many things it got perverted. Yeshua ben Joseph was a Jewish rabbi who lived from 70 BC to 9 BC. He was apparently crucified at some point, charged with being a thief. Prior to that there was a man by the name of Rabbi Hillel who apparently died in 100 BC. Rabbi Hillel was called the Great Teacher. Many Christians are led to believe that a man named Jesus was called this, when in fact it was Rabbi Hillel. Now, what happened was that the New Testament composite character of Jesus the Christ was created by the Council of Nicaea. Most of the words that are attributed to this composite character, referred to colloquially as Jesus, were in fact spoken by Apollonius of Tyana, who the Bible calls Paul of Tarsus. Because Rome had their armies scattered all over the place and all these wars were over the subject of religion, what the Council of Nicaea decided to do is essentially create a state religion. So, what they did was combine the religions of the East and the West, both of which were concerned with sun worship. Those in the West worshipped Hasos, also called Hes. Those in the East that worshipped the sun worshipped Krishna, which in Greek is called Christos. The very first Bible that was put together in 325 AD. They took some books that Apollonius of Tyana had brought back from Burma, called the Codes of the Initiates, which concerned themselves with man's relationship to the seasons, among other things, containing lessons that were handed down to those particular holy men in India during that particular period in history. The Codes of the Initiates allegedly contained words that were spoken by Krishna. The very first Bible was called the Helios Biblius, which means the Sun Book. This is what they did in the very beginning. Q. When was the Helios Biblius assembled? AC. Between 324 and 355 AD, by the Council of Nicaea under Emperor Constantine the Great. Then they slowly developed a god, a personage, to replace the sun, and slowly changed the books, disposing of the material detailing reincarnation and many of the other teachings. They changed meanings, and every scribe that worked on this thing kept changing things as belief systems were revised with the prevailing times. Q. How about things ascribed to the historical Jesus, such as the Sermon on the Mount? AC. The exact words ascribed to the historical Jesus, with reference to the Sermon on the Mount, were found in the Turkish Museum, authored by a Greek senator in 64 AD. The church went out and gathered all the information they could at various times in history, and they suppressed what they didn't agree with or what they didn't want the people to know. Q. Then, who was the healer in this whole scenario? AC. That was Apollonius of Tyana, who the Catholic Church referred to as the Antichrist, despite the fact that he was also known as Paul of Tarsus, mainly because he encouraged rebellion against Roman tyranny. Q. And Yeshua ben Joseph. AC. From what I understand, he was of the royal line, but he tried to create rebellion against Roman tyranny as well. Now, there was also another Yeshua. Q. Another Yeshua? AC. Yes. It was a very common name in Judea. He was a rabbi who was also a rebel, of sorts. He died at Masada in 64 AD, and his presence at Masada was why Masada was attacked. His name was Yeshua Malathil. The bottom line is there was no Jesus Christ in history at all. It was a composite character, and history reveals this fact. Q. Now, Robert Morning Sky revealed that the specific crucifixion that involved a Yeshua was a mock crucifixion, and that the person did not really die, because he was given an herbal mixture to simulate death, and that Barabbas was in fact the son of the Yeshua concerned here. AC. Yes, if you take the name Barabbas, which is a two-word name, not Barabbas, as in the biblical product of the Roman Church, and you go back to the ancient Hebrew, it means son of the teacher or son of the master. Q. So whose son was Barabbas? Yeshua Melville. Q. His son. AC. Yes, and from that grew the lineage in France. Q. The lineage in France? That is where Alex Christopher's book Pandora's Box picks the trail up. the so-called bloodline of Christ that related to the mission of the Templars. AC, that's right. It related not to Yeshua, Jesus, Malathiel himself, who died at Masada in 64 AD, but to his son, Barabbas, who survived and went to France. Q. This is also connected with the blue bloods and extraterrestrial genetics? AC, that's exactly right. Q. So Yeshua Malathiel was a blue blood? AC, yes, he was, and he was connected to the house of David, and if you go all the way back through the line, through David, and you get to Moses, who was a human extraterrestrial half-breed. Q. So, was it Yeshua Malathiel who was involved in the cross scenario? AC, I don't know for sure. The only place I have heard of the story that Robert is talking about is from a book called Crucifixion by an Eyewitness, which does not at all imply that Robert got his data from that book, just that the book mentions it. But, the Essens were herbalists and knew how to mix potions and knew about this kind of thing. Of course, the real secrets about all of this lie in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Q, which the Israeli government have locked up, or at least most of them, and will only let a few select people see a few of them. AC, yes, by the Israelis and the Roman Church, because what the Dead Sea Scrolls show, according to the Andromedans, are that Christianity and Judaism were really one thing, one religion, and they also tell the true story of who Yeshua was, as we have spoken about here. Q. Yeshua Malathiel? AC, right. Rabbi Wise in the 1950s and 1960s did an extensive study of the death warrants and death certificates of those who were crucified during that time period, as the Romans kept records, and the only Yeshua listed as being crucified was a man coincidentally named Yeshua Malathiel, who was listed as a traitor and a thief. Mary of the house of Magdalene was the wife of Yeshua Malathiel. She came from a very well-to-do family who raised doves for sacrifices put on by the Pharisees at the temples. I think the book Holy Grail talks a little about that, too. The Jewish tradition was at that time that any man 13 years of age, who was a rabbi, must take a wife and have children. That was the law. Q. How did the crucifixion scenario arise with Yeshua Malathiel and his son, Barabbas? AC. Well, the story behind that is that they took Barabbas because they knew that the father, Yeshua, would come after his son. The story goes on to say that a ransom was paid, and they did a mock crucifixion in order to hide the fact of a payoff to the Romans. Malathiel did not leave the area. He continued to do what he did and died at Masada. There is apparently a scroll which is in the possession of the Russians that proves this, and the son, Barabbas, was escorted to France with the rest of the family. Q. So, presuming that somewhere along the line Christians or Jews would read this material, what would you say to them if they feel concerned by it? AC. Well, all I would say is that true history does not support the idea or the proof that a Jesus Christ lived. It does prove that Apollonius of Tyana was real, and the other thing I would say is, you've been duped. There is no middleman between you and the Creator, and your relationship is directly with the Creator. Q. Of course, this is why Gnosticism has been so suppressed throughout history. AC. Yes. These churches exist only because people believe in them and support them financially. If you take that away and say, my relationship is with the Creator, I don't need a middleman, then there's no need for you. Let's face it, the church is politics and a form of government. The Andromedans share very much the same viewpoint as some of the Palladian groups, that all religions on our planet are forms of government, and they don't see any difference between government and politics, power brokering, in their perspective. I mean, people used to have to pay priests in order to assure their place in heaven. Q. Are there any religious systems on this planet that are at all beneficial? AC. There are two religious systems they say have been beneficial, and they were the original form of Buddhism and the original form of Shinto. All the other stuff is designed to hold you back and control you. That is their perception. 15. Creation of our universe. Q. Why would the group consciousness of the Pratal come into third density? AC. The Draconian legends, according to the Andromedans, talk about wars with the Pratal, who created the human form of physicality. Now, let's just pretend here that we, as the Pratal, knew as a race that there was no way we were ever going to destroy this reptilian race. This war would go on forever. Now, being the spiritual beings that we could be, and here's just a concept or an idea, it could be that we realized that the only way to take care of the negative polarity in our universe was to come and incarnate at its lowest point, its lowest frequency, and alter that frequency so much that everything in its path would evolve. You could do this so none of the negativity could hide or defend itself. The transformation would be so fast, so instantaneous that suddenly they would be light. You've ended all wars. There's no more death and suddenly everybody is an enlightened being. There has only been a period of 200 years during the last 2,000 years when there hasn't been a war on Earth. Q. But isn't that forcing enlightenment? Well, we hold a frequency of war, and this frequency emanates into space. Now, if this is truly us, then our minds are creating, firing or triggering other-like consciousness everywhere. We're the catalyst. It's not by force. They have a choice. You change the catalyst and there's no more fuel for anything else. Everything else just burns out. For example, look at what is going on in Bosnia, and who is giving both sides the weapons of war. You take away the weapons and there is no war. Somebody is paying them to do this. So, you have to take away the fire. Right now, we are the fuel, and the Draconians, Greys, the Orion Group and others are benefiting by this fuel. It starts right here, and other galaxies are sending ambassadors to come and watch what is happening here, what is going to happen in 2013. We have one side saying no way and one side cheering us on. Q. Who's cheering us on? AC, the benevolence. Just in our galaxy alone there are 139 different races and planetary systems that want us to evolve because they are sick and tired of war and defending themselves, and having to worry about us. Everything affects everything else in the universe. 16. Inside the planet, the Hollow Earth. The Hollow Earth. All planets, suns and moons that are real, that were created by part of the creation, are hollow. There are no exceptions. I want you to look for Life magazine, an issue that was published on November 10, 1967. It shows a photograph of the Earth taken by the lunar orbiter, which shows a 1,600-mile diameter egress into the planet at the North Polar area. Now, we are always taught that the Earth is round, a sphere. Being somewhat pear-shaped, this is mostly true. However, persisted legends of flat areas. The top of the planet, having been hit a glancing blow by a planetary body billions of years ago, is very flat. Most space photographs of the Earth either delete the top of the planet to some degree, or the photos are doctored to show what the public expects to see. The magnetic North Pole is at 23.5 degrees latitude. About 200 miles south of the circular dip at the top of the planet is a 78-mile diameter opening into the planet. It's technically in northern Canada. Now, according to the Andromedans, the nature of gravity is different than we are told. We are told that because a planet spins on its axis, the centrifugal force creates gravity. Well, according to the Andromedans, that is not at all accurate, and that gravity is produced by highly penetrating radiation in the electromagnetic spectrum at a frequency of about 1 trillion cycles per second. Because our planet is hollow, it contains different caverns throughout its shell. It can support many times the life we think it can because there is a lot more livable surface area than we are taught there is. The following is a description of what it is like to descend into the interior of the Earth, given to me by the Andromedans. When you go 5 miles into your Earth, you will rapidly lose body weight. The reason for this is the limited ability of gravity radiations, and the gravity radiations and gravity effects of the Earth above counteract the gravity effects of the Earth below. Their counteracting effects are enhanced by the mass of the Earth above, which will transform some of the infrared radiations emanated by matter into a gravity-producing radiation per the laws of redistribution. When you reach a depth of 10 miles, you will notice that it begins to get lighter around you. Vissay said that there are no shadows to be found anywhere in the interior of the Earth at a depth of 100 miles because the light is contained in the particles that come from all directions and not a single source. In other words, the Earth itself seems to glow, along with everything else. Plant and animal forms flourish and grow larger than on the surface of the planet. At a depth of some 700 to 729 miles, one reaches a space of almost zero gravity because of the screening effect of soft particles. Going further about another 700 miles or so, you break out into the surface of the inner sphere, which has gravity due to the mechanics of the soft electrons and other balancing forces. An inner sun has formed because the particles of light concentrate at the center. Now, the orbit of the Earth has been changed 3 times, according to the Andromedans. During the time of Atlantis, it was possible to see both of the suns in our solar system, and the benefit of this is that you had day and twilight instead of day and night. But then, the planet was moved. Q. Why was the planet moved? AC. I don't know. That's a question the Pleiadians will have to answer. It was moved into its current orbit about 14,300 years ago. We cannot see the other sun now, and apparently it was done on purpose according to a larger agenda. This movement of the planet caused a lot of geological activity and flooding. A one-world system that works. The Andromedans have a planetary government, but the entire purpose for the existence of this world government is to make sure that everything on their worlds evolve. That is the only purpose of it. No other objective. To make sure that every life form evolves. It's run by the people themselves, and everybody volunteers to hold a position in it, which is easy for them because they live a couple of thousand years. But, there's no such thing as a professional politician on their world. No such animal. All of their children go to school, and all the education is free. They spend an average of 150 years in school. On varying ET information. Now, I know that there are other extraterrestrial groups talking to people. Vises and Morani are talking to 3 other people. Rumor has it that Pleiadian groups are talking to at least 30 people. But the information the Pleiadians are giving out is totally different than what you're giving out. AC, it's a different perspective, yes, but a lot of information between the two sources, or many of the sources, is compatible. It's just that the Pleiadians are telling the whole story about their involvement in things. They are hiding it, which the Andromedans feel isn't the right thing to do. They think that everybody should put all their cards on the table, right now, and deal with it. General questions and answers. Can the Andromedans teleport themselves? Yes, they can go anywhere they want. All you have to do, according to them, is have a destination and speed up the atomic structure of the body and you just disappear. The atoms are projected to where you want to go and you just appear there. They're thousands and thousands of years ahead of us in evolution. Do you go through a physical change when you are with the Andromedans? Do I go through a change? Not one that is really noticeable, except that sometimes I feel depressed when I have to come back. 17, 4th and 5th density, 2013 AD. 2013 AD. If you remember in earlier lectures, we talked about the new vibration, the new color sound vibration that is coming out of the black holes. The reason I bring this up is because everything in our world has been set up. Everything. You're going to see things start to move. You're going to see some incredibly positive things and some incredibly negative things. Now, it is important to understand this. The negative, or what we call negative, is really blocked energy. Where this energy is, whether it is in us or in the planet, doesn't matter. The fact that it is blocked does matter. Now, these new frequencies are hitting our planet, and we are moving up. The physical is being bombarded with energy. This frequency is first hitting our main sun, and the sun is speeding up in vibration. This is why there are more solar flares happening right now. When in third density a sun goes to the nova state, our scientists, being material reductionists, view it as dying out. To the Andromedans, however, what is happening is that it is leaving third density and moving into fifth. It is now sun on fifth density. What we are seeing is its release when it moves into the new vibration. The physical third density part of it cannot exist at the same time as the physical fifth density manifestation of it. There's a great misconception about fourth density, and a lot of people throw that term out there because it seems hip, but they don't really know what it means. Now, fourth density is a state of consciousness, awareness and being. It's about knowing yourself completely. It's about becoming real. The result of moving into this state is like everybody suddenly becoming psychic. It will just happen. Not everybody will physically survive the changes in the way they expect. Now, according to the Andromedans, the Earth has tried to get into fourth density, with humanity on it, twice before. Twice before, there was a terrible war. The last time was during the time of the sinking of Atlantis, and the other time was a situation with Lemuria when it sank due to a conflict with Atlantis. Now, if you look at the Book of Revelations, it predicts a terrible war. The Andromedans have often said that everything is a belief system, and if we buy into a belief system, we will self-fulfill that belief system, because we are creators. They say that major changes will start to be observed between 2004 and 2009. Some of us will be there sooner. An example of being there is that if the phone rings, you will know who it is. If someone knocks on the door, you will know who it is. You think of a family member and they will call. As it progresses, You'll be in tune all the time. You will not be in a position to say, it's just coincidence, because you will have come into a position of knowing this. It's not coincidence, but it is divine order. In other words, we'll be in the flow. Now, this doesn't mean we are not going to have our challenges. There's going to be war on the planet. There is still going to be crime, for a while. There are still going to be people who don't understand what is happening. There will still be people clinging to religions and begging for someone to come and save them. Be your own savior. That is the only permanent way to evolve. It's the only way. Even those who were perceived as saviors in the past didn't come to save, but they came to teach. Because of religious belief systems, there are millions of people who expect that somebody is going to come down here and solve all the problems. It isn't going to be like that at all. If there was a Jesus Christ, and he did come back, he would be pissed off. I can just picture Jesus Christ walking into the Vatican and saying, "Look what you did with what I gave you. What is all this gold for? What are all these paintings for? What are all these stupid hats you wear for? What is all this shit? This isn't what I gave you." Now, what will happen when the Earth moves into fourth density herself? She will start to heal herself, which means she won't need our help. This is why it is paramount that between now and 2004, we do everything we can, at least on a conscious level, to be consciously aware. They say that by the year 2004, the obituary pages will be very long because some people can't handle this. The children will be the least affected in a negative manner. As I have said before, the most affected will be men, because male energy has been totally irresponsible at this point. The Earth is female in nature. When she starts blowing off this energy, it's not going to be selective. When this energy comes up, they said that a lot of males will have brain strokes, sudden heart attacks and just cross over. There will also be some females affected in this way, but it will predominantly affect a large portion of the male population, which is at least half the population of the planet. The two polarities will become more pronounced, particularly between now and 2004. A lot of folks will act on the need to move out of cities and into small communities. A lot of this will be done in the mode of trying to be ready for survival. Last week we talked a bit about the viruses that are coming and the terabytes outbreaks in major cities. You will have people in your life just leave. You might be letting go of people in your life because they were of a different vibratory nature, and there will be people who will judge you because from their perception and point of view, you are not waiting for a savior, or for other reasons. Let these people go from your life. Just bless them, love them and send them on their way, because the space will be filled by others of like mind. Like minds attract each other. Positivity attracts more positivity. Negativity attracts more of the same. The next step, 2 + 1 = 12. Now, we have mentioned that we used to have 12 strands of DNA, and that strands were removed leaving us with 2 in order to limit our capabilities. The strands that were removed dealt with spiritual energies and remembrance of those energies, and the racial and genetic memories of our forefathers. From the Andromedan perspective, we don't need the 12 strands anymore. We are basically going to be transforming into a 3-strand system which will encompass the range of the 10 strands that were removed from our system. You remember that the Andromedan Council issued an edict that all ET influence was to be off this planet by August 12, 2003? Since telepathic races use symbols, it is easy to understand why the Andromedans indicate that part of the function of the crop circles we are seeing is to let them know they must leave. Another aspect of the crop circles is to inform the Earth entity about the process for dimensional shifting. There's going to be a period between 2003 and 2009, 4 to 5 years, where we will be on our own, because they want to see how we interact with each other without ET manipulation. This will be our test. Editor note: in this light, it is interesting that the current political administration falls just short of that point in the time stream. 5th density. How many people will move into 5th density? The last time I asked the question, which was about a year ago, the Andromedans said that between 435 and 510 million people will literally move into 5th density by December 3, 2013. In 5th density you can create and manifest anything you want directly. Our bodies will become energy form, although we could materialize into matter forms if we chose to do so. You won't need to eat food. All you will need is the energy from the sun, which will supply your life force. When we move into 5th density, our solar system will have 27 planets on that frequency. Jupiter, as I have said before, will itself be a light blue sun. Earth's physical form will experience a pole shift, and the new North Pole will be in Saudi Arabia. The South Pole will be off the coast of South America. The Earth will experience a lot of rain and a lot of changes. Not everybody will move into fifth at the same time. There will be some who are still physical from our third density point of view. There will appear to be a 10,000-fold increase in the number of stars visible in the sky. We will discover billions of different life forms that have been on the planet that we have not previously been able to perceive as we go through these frequency changes. As it gets close to the time for fifth density, people will begin to see more ghost-like images. Many drugs that we have now will no longer work the same because the physical body will be shifting. All of major medicine is going to have to shift to a light color sound format, because nothing else will work properly. It has to move in that direction, because that is what we are becoming. Being spiritually evolved doesn't mean that you listen to every lecture, buy every book, retain all the notes and watched all the movies. Spiritual evolution comes out of experience only, because only out of experience do you gain wisdom. 18. Changing consciousness. Becoming a leader. Because we are essentially like hamsters inside a cage, spinning on the wheel, we are not moving because we are still inside a cage. Even if you jump off the wheel, you are still inside the cage. The idea is to eliminate the cage completely. Practice not being in a survival mode of consciousness. Just do it for 15 minutes a day, if you can, then try extending the period of time. Get into a space where you have everything you need in your life. Everything is right there. Now, all thought creates reality. So, for 15 minutes a day, you just convince yourself, and if you can't pretend, then pretend to pretend. Whatever it takes. Do you know what will happen? That 15-minute period will start to happen many times a day, all by itself, and you won't even realize it. It will just be a mode of being that will become part of your life. Do you have any idea how much energy it takes to take yourself from 11th density and focus into this little box? This tiny box. It's awesome. The law of consistency is that everybody evolves together. No one falls behind. If one is held back, then we are all held back. This is what fourth density is. It's essentially a group mind where we honestly care about each other. It's not about money, power, greed, material things, sex, religion and all of that. This part of me that you see is only 1% of who I am. You are seeing a copy. You are seeing a holographic projection, an image that I have projected from myself that has materialized in third density. You may come up and shake my hand, but you're not shaking all of me. Now, there is a lot of change coming. A lot of folks are not prepared for it. You have it within you to help to be teachers. To help pull the race together. There are outside influences here already and more of them coming that are going to try and divide us as a race. We can lose, but we can forestall graduation. We don't want to do that if we can help it. You must stand in your power. You have to do that yourself, and there is only one requirement, to believe in yourselves. If you don't believe in yourself, go back and look at everything everybody ever told you culturally and just erase it, because it is a lie. It's a lie. They were wrong. Again, stand in your strength. Stand in your love. Be who you are. Remember that the word warrior meant a person who is not afraid to be who they are. To be who you are every single moment, whether somebody likes it or not. It doesn't matter what other people think if you are being impeccable. As long as you don't do something to hurt them, consciously, it doesn't matter what they think. How many of you that have been shaped by peer pressure are happier because of it? None of you. The New World Order will do anything to formulate itself. It will in fact do that, but its life will be short-lived. In other words, they will set up the structure and framework for a manipulative world order. But just when they think they have it nailed down, the rug will be pulled out from under them, and the people will then rise up and assume the leadership role on the planet. Just do it. Alex, once it occurs, the item is instantaneously up there in space in the upper atmosphere. Now, this has been going on for more than 30 years, and all the while no one has had a clue.